It's Wednesday, April 27th, 2022, 6 p.m. This Board of Commission meeting is called to order. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mayor Hendricks.
Here.
Vice Mayor Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Tagliarini. Commissioner Kerr.
Here.
Commissioner Hudson.
Here.
Okay, first is public comment. If there's anyone that would like to make public comment on anything that is not on tonight's agenda, please step up to the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes to speak. Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation. Oh, okay.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach, Florida. This deals with the Sunshine Law case that's currently before the court. Depositions were taken, I think, a week ago. The lawsuit is pending, in which I allege that Hendricks, Commissioner Andrews, former Commissioners Price and Hodges violated the Sunshine Law by meeting privately with Tom Trask in the shade without any public discussions and appointing him as interim city attorney. This is an issue about defense of the case. The commissioners have been defended by Andrew Salzman, the attorney provided by the city's insurance company, since October 2021. On April 6th, Jay Nagno, Mr. Trask's law partner, filed a notice stating that he also represented the commissioners. Mr. Nagno said he intends to bill the city for his representation of the commissioners, even though they are already represented by counsel. Mr. Nagno says he received authorization to represent the commissioners and bill the city for his services as a result of an oral conversation with the city manager Gomez. Last week I sent an email to city manager Gomez asking him to confirm and explain the substance of the conversation with Mr. Nagno about representing Andrews, Hendricks, and Hodges. To date, I have not received a response. In 2017, Mr. Trask, as city attorney, advised the commission that only a commission can authorize the retention of an attorney for employees or public officials in the event that they are involved in ethics or other kinds of legal matters. To date, there is no evidence that the city has retained Mr. Nagno to represent the commissioners. The commissioners should request Mr. Nagno to withdraw from his representation and declare that it will not pay for his services. Mr. Trask should recuse himself from providing any legal opinion on this matter. Mayor Hendricks and Commissioner Andrews must recuse themselves from any votes on the above matter. Secondly, the city needs to appoint a permanent city attorney. Trask is an interim city attorney. He's been serving in that position since May of 2020. An RFP was prepared at that time, but was never issued. The commission should authorize an RFP for permanent legal services at its next BOC meeting. Thanks very much.
Anyone else? Next is a presentation by Florida Parking Group. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. My name is Dan McNutt. I'm a resident of 120 95th Ave, Treasure Island. I'm also the founder and CEO of UPP Global LLC, the parent company of FL Parking Co. We're a full-service parking management company with our corporate office based in Portland, Maine, and we're active in 9 states, from Maine down to Florida along the eastern seaboard, with more than 300 locations. Pinellas County and the Tampa Bay area have become a very active market for us, and it's an area that I certainly fell in love with and bought a home here and became a resident. In Pinellas County, we've got about 70 locations, hotels, commercial garages, commercial flat lots, from Tampa stretching to Clearwater Beach down to St. Pete Beach, in Sarasota and Siesta Key. We've got a great management team and a large base of staff here locally. And what we want to talk about and present tonight is kind of a brief explanation of a municipal services focus that we've taken on as a company. We have a very unique approach to bringing value to specifically smaller tourism-driven municipalities. What you'll see in a lot of markets around the country are municipalities that outsource their parking management to third-party professional operators. And we've developed an approach that is unique, very much so unique, in that we create significant value for the municipalities that we operate in by bringing 100% of all project infrastructure to the table at no cost, upfront cost to the municipality. We amortize the cost of any infrastructure over the term of the contract at 0% interest. We have the lowest pricing possible due to the amount of volume with parking infrastructure that we buy on a yearly basis. So basically, FL Parking Code commits to providing and installing all necessary project infrastructure, including but not limited to LPR cameras. This is a new technology that's becoming very active in parking management, creates a lot of efficiencies with monitoring and enforcement, and also has other layers of benefit as well to the community in regards to security and kind of understanding who's coming and going, over the causeway and into Madera Beach. Ultimately, we have, any existing infrastructure, we have the ability to provide all and total maintenance and upkeep. Any new infrastructure at any time we provide to the municipality at no upfront cost. We have dedicated resources to ensure our locations receive the highest levels of service. Our preferred national contracting relationships not only certify our locations receive immediate responsiveness for product issues, but also receive favorable cost discounts. So kind of back to what I was talking about with the municipalities being able to benefit from that as well. Our deal structure, really kind of the key thing that I want to share with you in this initial meeting. We are confident enough in our ability to create value and efficiencies that we would guarantee a base minimum 20% increase in NOI for the municipality in year one. And again, that would be a base minimum increase, and we would be bonded. That guarantee would be bonded. I do believe that we can provide even higher value than that, but that is a base minimum of 20%. Again, this is not based on a strategy to increase rates. We would commit to working within the existing parking rate structures. It's really due to our focused management strategies that are proven and a real track record of success. I've also have joining me today Derek Brandt, our company COO. He's going to share a little bit about, we're very focused on the latest and greatest technologies that are available in the parking industry. This lends to our success. I also have with us tonight Alicia Sanderson, who recently came on board with us. Previously, she was with Emerald Isle in North Carolina, voted the #1 beach community in the state of North Carolina for 33 years as the head of their parks department. We have a contract, a multi-year contract managing the parking there, and Alicia has recently retired and come on board with us to help us with our municipal efforts and new business development. She's going to speak a little bit to the experience that Emerald Isle had and kind of from that municipal level. So I'm going to pass it over to Derek. Thank you, folks.
Good evening. To elaborate a little bit on what Dan was saying about the technology fronts, we deploy Flowbird, formerly Calais, pay stations throughout our commercial municipality contracts throughout the country. We've invested pretty heavily into that partnership with them. We've sent our staff and our management team to their corporate headquarters to be trained on as technicians to be able to repair, monitor, and to fix the machines. We've also been trained on the technical side of it, where we send people down there to learn how to set rates, reprogram rates. So if there is changes in rates or rate structures, and we want to look at dynamic pricing, especially in our private locations, we have the ability to do that on ourselves, and not send the requests through to our vendors to do and wait on them. So it's very much real time that we do a lot of this stuff in. Flowbird, we're one of the largest private operators in the country as a buyer of Flowbird products. So it's an exclusive partnership, a master service agreement that we have with them. So we do sit on ample amount of inventory in their warehouse, so we have access to that at any time if we wanted to add on inventory or extra spaces within any market, whether that be an event or a pop-up that we want to bring more inventory on. And then all these bases on the way we generally set up most of our pay stations are with ADA compliant bases, and meter racks with PCI compliance, and they're all PCI compliant. That is the primary means of our payment solutions for paid parking. But we have found in just our expertise in the industry that they're the best way to approach paid parking and to be convenient for all parties is to have a dual payment system where you start to feather in mobile payment solutions. In the past, it's been really pushed that we have multiple options available in regards to applications, mobile apps, which used to force people to download these apps and have a lot of downtime. Where the industry has been going more recently is that it's a single source payment system. With the popularity of QR codes now, we have that application available where people can now scan the QR code, and instead of downloading an app, it takes them right into a web browser page, and they can make payments more efficiently. That is done through a scan to pay is kind of the name for that, as well as if your cameras on your phones are broken, you also have the option of texting to pay, and where you would type in a numeric number of 4 or 5 digits long, and it will take you right into kind of the same pages as your scan to pay. Takes you right into the steps where you add your license plate, your duration of time, a credit card. If you're a return user, that credit card stays on file like a mobile wallet. And it's a cleaner process and a quick process for them. So really we found over time that the dual payment systems with having physical infrastructure in our markets as well as having that mobile kind of play to all parties. And really it's not at the point where mobile kind of rules and leads kind of you can not have the physical infrastructure, where a lot of different operators will tell you that's the way to go, where mobile is single source. We really see that when we compare the data and look at everything, a lot of people are still going to that physical pay station most of the time. Kind of to carry on a little on Dan's point about the LPR, the license plate technology, that has been something that's been really becoming popular in parking over the last couple of years. In the past, it's been a very expensive product and hardware to kind of outfit garages or as a system, but with more and more time it has come and the improvement of the capture ratios and more companies now being in it, LPR has really kind of taken a big presence in this industry now, especially on the monitoring enforcement. We are currently in a joint venture with a security company where they provide most of this hardware through Motorola and Vigilant, which is one of the more popular LPR systems. It provides you with the actual hardware and the whole back-end software for your enforcement. We have started to outfit vehicles in each of our markets, and with the mobile LPR systems on top of the vehicles, It covers about 4 times more ground than a walking route, so it's another value add and efficiency that we're bringing to our services and our operations. We also have the ability to, for standalone locations that are off the beaten path and are not in an area where there's multiple locations, we have the ability to do fixed LPR cameras, which is very helpful in regards to keeping labor costs down, where you're not sending a person into an area where there's very, very limited inventory. We have the ability to put a fixed LPR camera into these lots and act and work the same way as having someone in there as an enforcement agent. So it will ping the violators. It'll be able to send it to their registration, ping it based on the registration, and send a citation directly to them. And that is another thing right now that, in addition to the physical infrastructure like the pay stations, something that we have unlimited access to on the hardware, and something that we can bring to the table on our municipality contracts, both on the parking end and then its benefits and value adds that it does on the crime and for that city or town. At this point, I think I will hand it over to Alicia. Let me leave that there.
Good evening. Thank you for having us and letting us present to you this evening. I came to know UPP and NC Parking as a customer. They submitted for an RFP that we issued, the town of Emerald Isle issued for paid parking. And honestly, as a person who was reviewing those, I was so impressed, primarily because every other submittal requested these large amounts of investment for a small municipality that's tourism-driven, that was going to require a lot of underground utilities to support that equipment that they wanted to bring in, and the town would have had to pay for that equipment. Whereas NC Parking assured us that they would bring in the equipment, there would be no disruption to the grounds, it was all solar powered, and they gave us a guaranteed income amount. And they delivered on that, and it was great. And prior, we had only, from 2011 through 2020, we had only charged on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays in our small town, and that was at $10 a day. So obviously there was some outcry from the public who was not a taxpayer or would have had to pay for those services, who hadn't previously, that there would be such a ripoff and that they weren't wanted. At the end of the season, the data supports that the average user paid $8.62 per visit. So not only did they double our income, but they also brought down the per visitor fee. So I was very pleased with them, pleased enough so that when my time was up and I had decided to retire, I decided to join them and help us do this to help other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions?
This sounds like it's lots only. Currently, we have parking people that handle streets. Is this going to be just lots?
So we have, our approach would be to manage both the commercial parking lots as well as the on-street. We would provide the monitoring and enforcement service, you know, the really bringing the whole package A to Z, managing both the on-street and the physical flat lots. We have, you know, the capability, if it ever presented itself to in Madera Beach, to manage commercial garages, and we have a large portfolio of large commercial garages as well, including we'll be stepping in and taking over control and management of, as an example, here in Pinellas County, the North Beach garage on Clearwater, the 700 space transient parking garage there on Clearwater as of next week. So, you know, we've got several garages on Clearwater, but ultimately, to answer your question, we have the ability to manage every vertical of either on-street, flat lot, garage, whatever the case may be. We can implement valet services when necessary, if that's a service that can bring additional value or create additional inventory. So that's also another area that we've got a lot of experience in, and very active operations, even here in Madera Beach currently.
And how many hours a day would you have somebody here, and how many people would you have in
So
something?
ultimately, I think that if what we're presenting is something that seems attractive, the next steps would be, and something that the commission and the community leadership here would like to take a further look into, the next steps would be for us to do a more formal analysis of the existing program and all the details therein, and then we would make, an operational proposal that would, speak to those types of detail. But ultimately, I mean, there's a set, in municipalities, typically, there's set hours already. Typically, we don't recommend or propose, moving outside of those parameters. We understand that there's very specific reasons for that, and specifically in the municipal setting. So, the reality would be, and again, too, working within the existing rate structure, working within the existing parameters, we may make recommendations, but we understand the dynamics of the municipality and the reasons why policies are in place that are.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I didn't understand the guaranteed 20%, what you call it, NOI, that stands.
So I would say an easy way to, probably to make it more clear, for examples purposes, if in 2021, and I'm just using a random number, if Madera Beach's net operating income from their parking department was $2 million, we would guarantee $2.4 million, within the first year as a base minimum. So an increase of 20% as a base minimum increase. Again, our goal would be to perform even higher than that.
Okay, so you're taking the gross revenue minus whatever it costs us to maintain it,
Exactly.
and then adding 20% to that.
Yeah.
And if I understand it correctly, there's no upfront cost to, for any infrastructure or anything you need to put on.
Correct.
And, of course, here in Florida, all the plates are strictly on the rear, and most everywhere throughout is front parking. How do you read?
So our
tag.
team currently, we've been implementing the fixed LPR on the vehicles. We also have, our monitoring enforcement team also has handhelds, so they're able to, you're able to cover a lot of ground with the vehicle, but at the same time, there is the need to get out and also use that scanner, but it's also very quick.
So it is labor intensive on your
Most
end?
certainly, yeah. There's still definitely a labor component. With our monitoring and enforcement, we really track the data, the historical volume trends, and try to be as strategic as possible with our staffing. So there may even be incidents where we've got, or time periods and seasons where we have potentially more labor than what's been provided historically. And then during other times of year, we're able to potentially reduce that. And that's really what our focus is in the way that we provide our efficiencies.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand
Sure.
the business plan, because we're not increasing rates, we're not increasing number of hours. You're really banking on whatever the cost is to reduce that cost, basically to increase that net revenue.
Certainly, yeah. We're really, again, confident in our ability to really bring a focused, professional background and perspective, not suggesting that the team here has not done a tremendous job historically, but we are very confident in our ability to bring efficiencies and bring a different level of expertise that gives us the confidence to make that type of a guarantee. Ultimately, for me, as I'm approaching, these types of opportunities, rather than get in front of you and tell you that I can do this, this, and this, I believe that there's a lot of weight in kind of putting our money where our mouth is, and that's why.
I can appreciate that. What's the minimum term contract to see? Is it a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year? What is it?
Ultimately, I think based on our presence here in Pinellas County, based on our access to infrastructure, we would be willing to explore, even a short term, give us an opportunity to come in and deliver, give us a 1 year term to prove what we're saying and deliver on our commitments. And then, the goal would be to extend that. Ideally, we prefer to enter into, a 3 to 5 year term. But again, we want to earn the right and earn your trust, so I would be willing to do a short-term contract to begin with.
So majority of
Our
the,
model.
combined with the infrastructure that's already here, a majority of what the infrastructure would be mobile, I would imagine. So
Ultimately, or, we would do an analysis of existing equipment too, change out equipment that may be older and kind of on the last stages of its productivity. Again, our approach is to provide as much infrastructure, signage, and direction for ultimately for the customers to make it as easy, clear, and convenient for them to follow parking policy. So we may even make recommendations on adding additional infrastructure and obviously point to data and projected revenues that would justify that, because again, we're bringing it at no cost, but it is amortized over the period of a deal. And even if we did a 1 year term, we could even be more aggressive with that and even bring infrastructure in at no cost and not even put it on that amortized. I could make a commitment like that, once again, in the nature of proving that we mean what we say and that we deliver on our commitments. Because we do. We have a large amount of inventory always ready. We're a rapidly and fast-growing company, and so we're always prepared. To Derek's point, too, another area that we're very focused on is, during events and all of the, large festivals and events that take place here in Madera Beach, we're able to have infrastructure available that we could deploy that's portable. We've got our ADA compliant portable bases. The equipment is all solar powered. I know that Madera Beach has already experienced the customized wraps and things like that, and we're also very focused on bringing that kind of aesthetic to specifically these beach communities.
are any of your business model have to do with illegal parking and citations, or is that totally separate?
We do. So we provide the monitoring and enforcement piece. And so that's something that we're very focused on. That's something that we're very dialed into. And again, that's an area that we're always confident that we can create value in. Citation, collections. A lot of times there will be significant backlog of unpaid citations, and we've got strategies and ways to.
I would think that would have to be a big part of your
Certainly.
strategy. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and as I understand, first of all, Dan, this would have to go out for an RFP
Certainly.
regardless. But as I understand, you said that basically nothing would change. This would effectively look like the city of Madeira Beach is still doing.
Most certainly,
as
yeah.
far as,
Yeah, the
we're
branding,
having no
everything
rate
stays.
increases or anything like that.
Absolutely. Working within the existing rate structure, all of the branding stays the same. That's something that, Alicia could speak to as well. We can show examples of municipalities that we operate in. The signage is all unique to, yeah, so those things stay the same, certainly.
And the ability to put our residents' tags in there to
Absolutely.
where they don't pay for
Absolutely.
parking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's we understand how crucial that is, meeting the needs of the residents, prioritizing their needs and accommodating them. And we've got technology platforms that, make that a lot easier even now than it may have been in the past. A little bit more cumbersome for people to come in and get passes, and this is all things that we can assist people with doing online now and keep a very active and accurate database and really effectively manage that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a couple, you can sit, Dan. I just got a comment, not really a big deal.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I love the technology, and this really, and John, the mayor hit it right on the head. This really has nothing to do with Florida parking at this particular point in time, because I think we're a little ahead of our skis on this right now, because this is a little bit more complex than this. In my opinion, the first thing we'd have to address is, are we willing to eliminate a division? And it's a very profitable division, and it's a division that there's certain spots, and we got a lot of John's Pass people here, and they'll tell you, there's certain lots that Florida parking runs that are $5 an hour, and we're now $3 an hour. But we'd have to come to the conclusion that what we're doing right now is not working, okay? That's just my personal opinion, I can ask Rob, because I don't get any complaints about our parking department. I hear the only thing, every once in a while, somebody gets a ticket for backing in, and I kind of get some crap about that. But besides that, for the most part, it runs pretty well. And as far as the pricing is concerned, and, do we still control the pricing then from that point? Are we able to tell them, because if they're not making enough money, because there's only one reason you guys would get into this is to make money on this. As the rate goes, if we have a very profitable division, well, if we raised our price $1 or $2, well, we don't have any overhead increases. We have the same people going in. If I was a private business and I didn't have a parking division, I'd hand these guys the keys right now, say, write me a check at the end of the month, and we're good to go. But again, I think we're just a little over our skis right now, where we have to talk amongst ourselves in a workshop. Better not say talk amongst ourselves out loud. In a workshop, in order to determine if this is a path we want to take. And these guys know. We'd have to go to an RFP. We'd have to do a bunch of different things. But I really appreciate the presentation. I think the technology is cool, and it's kind of taking us to another level, especially. And we know the importance of it too. We're in the process of coming up with financing to build a parking garage. So we know the importance of getting more parking here as well. So thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we just don't want to price ourselves out of the market either, and I think that's a very key element of this, is to keep people coming to the beach and coming to John's Pass Village and not aggravating the heck out of people because of what they're running into with coming out here and parking. Anything we do has got to be a smooth transition and a smooth operation in general for the city. So, okay. Is there any public comment on this? No.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach, Florida. I just have a couple of questions. They deal with privacy and security. It's unclear to me as to why they need a license plate number. I can go in and use my credit card just about any place here, and I never have to produce my social security card or a license plate number at all. So I'm not sure why they need this kind of information. It's just putting more information out there that may not be in a very secure system. And I'd be concerned about what kind of security systems they have in place, such that if they're hacked, people don't wind up with my or other people's credit card numbers. In addition, the system is kind of inconvenient because it requires you to put in a license plate number. When I park my car, sometimes I park my car, sometimes I park my wife's car. It means that I have to have two systems up on my phone to handle those different license plate numbers. So I think the license plate number is really irrelevant to it. The other question I would ask would be, what do they do with the data they collect? Who are they selling it to? Who are they distributing it to? These are kinds of things that I think we're all concerned about, privacy issues. And then you have security issues. Is their system secure? Is it iOS qualified? You know, what kind of security do they have in place such that they're not likely to be hacked? If they're interfacing with the city system, is there anything that would occur if they were attacked and hacked, and that would lead into the city system? So these are kinds of things that I think you should take a look at. I don't know if they were discussed in this briefing or not. I know there's concerns about cost and those kinds of things and how this all goes together. But I think these are things you should probably also take a look at. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Bill Carnes, 410 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach, Florida. I've been associated, affiliated with Dan's Florida Parking Company since 2015, not only in multiple lots here in Madeira Beach, but also in some of the other beach communities here that he services. I can just tell you that his reporting and profits in accounting is state-of-the-art. All of his equipment is state-of-the-art, and he runs a first-class company, and that's all I wanted to tell you. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, next is ordinance 2022-08. Mr. Trask, would you like to read that for us?
You're not going to be adopting this tonight, you're just going to be discussing it in the workshop.
right.
But I'll read the ordinance. This is ordinance 2022-08, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 110 zoning, Division 5, C1 Tourist Commercial, Section 110-256, definition, purpose, and intent, Section 110-257, permitted uses, Section 110-262, maximum building height, Section 110-263, maximum lot coverage, Section 110-265, special requirements of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Madeira Beach, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. That was a reading of ordinance 2022-08 by title only.
Thank you.
This ordinance came to you earlier this month for first reading, and there is a little bit of questions about the ISR. So I think that's why this came up for the workshop. I just wanted to pull up the Pinellas County Property Appraisers. You can see this on the screen, just to show you the area that we'll be discussing. This is only in C1, so it's this area right here. So Planning Commission approved the ordinance as written with an FAR, going from an FAR of 0.7 to 0.85. And at the BOC meeting earlier this month, there's discussions of keeping it at that ISR 0.7. As you can see, in this district, many of the lots are paved almost entirely. This is why we were proposing it to go to an 0.85. Now, in the comprehensive plan, it does allow you to go to 0.9, but the zoning code is more restrictive than the comprehensive plan. That is all that I have. If you have any questions.
Well, for me, we actually are cutting back from 100% to 85. So, and I know property is very limited down there. Johns Pass Village, other than one vacant lot, is built out. So I was fine with the ordinance as written.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, I wish Dave was, I'm sorry, Commissioner Tagliarini was here, because I wanted to apologize to him, because I think I gave the impression that I thought that the data that he was passing out was inaccurate. That's not what I said. I basically, and I think we all kind of should adopt this philosophy, that if you're going to bring something on the day of the meeting, or you have something that's going to contradict our experts, and we do, we have experts in here. I mean, you know, Megan probably knows more about stormwater than anybody, you know, in the zip code, right? And I mean, Andrew, even with his meager collegiate experience, he's pretty good at finance too. But, you know, Linda Portal is, I mean, has forgotten more about zoning and planning than anybody around here. And not only that, she has Jenny, and I know that we've also hired some outside consultants, because this is a very important project for the city. So to Dave, I do apologize. I wasn't saying his information was not factual. I was saying if you're going to bring something to contradict our experts, at least give me something to hold on to. You know what I mean? Don't read off of a document. I would say it if he was sitting here too. I'm not trying to pick on him. Give us the information. Give it to Clara before the meeting so we can look at it and we can digest it, or put it on the dais so, you know, I have something to read as well. Because reading a prepared statement, while perfectly okay, unless I have the documentation to contradict what my experts are saying, I'm probably going to vote with my experts, all right? And it's totally within our right to question them, totally in the right of the Planning Commission to question all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, the mayor's correct. If you look at this plot, we're actually decreasing the amount of ISR. So that's all I really got to say on it. And like I said, again, I'd like to issue an apology to Commissioner Tagliarini if he took that the wrong way.
Yeah, I have a bit to say on it. Now, this only has to do with reconstruction or new construction within anything that's there now is there now. So that's,
If one of these buildings was demolished
right, so that would be
or
reconstruction.
they could apply for a redevelopment, but they would still have to meet the ISR 0.7. So they wouldn't get an allowance of whatever ISR is there currently.
Okay. So are pavers considered pervious?
No, they are impervious. And
Even
our-
though the water would go down between
Even if
them?
they are pervious pavers, our code does not specify pervious pavers being allowed as a pervious surface.
Okay. I'm just trying to put my mind around the whole idea of basically a parking lot, 15% pervious versus having some filtration. Where does it go? I'm not, in this application, I'm not so concerned with erosion. I think that was brought up. I'm more concerned about pollutant, running into the bay, into the intracoastal. All that being said, with a 20-foot setback in the rear, and I was under the impression that the pavers would be pervious because water's not going to run off of a set of pavers as it does concrete. In my mind, I'm justifying what's there now as, to be able to meet that 0.70 or the 0.85. What's there now, or what would be there if it had to be rebuilt naturally. Like with a home, residential is much lower because the home is going to be a much smaller piece of that property. I do agree with Commissioner Andrews. It's hard to make a vote on something where you don't feel you have all the information, and that's why I recommended to push this, and let's talk about it more at the regular meeting. Commissioner Tagliarini did mention that the St. Pete Beach Ordinance, and I only was able to find the one from 2015, was strictly 0.7. I'm not reading it that way, and maybe there's a newer one that is exactly what he mentioned, but I'm reading it as 0.7 exclusively for residential uses, maximum impervious surface ratio, ISR for all other uses is 0.85. So I'm just trying to get it right. I just wanted this opportunity to discuss it.
I'd also say, if you go to page 24 in your agenda packet, you can see each one of our districts and the current ISR. So in R1, it's 0.65, R2 is 0.7, R3 is 0.7, and then you can also see C2, earlier this month, we proposed 0.85. That was approved on the first reading. C3, it's 0.7 and 0.85. That's going to be on your east side of Gulf Boulevard. And then C4 is 0.85 as well. So a lot of those commercial lots are 0.85 currently. Also in R3, it's not on here, but if you use temporary lodging, it is 0.85 as well.
Okay. Going back to the pavers, I'm not going to beat this to death, but, you know, is there something that could be done? I mean, you have to have access to and from all these places. So in the public right-of-way, I'll say, again, if pavers aren't pervious, what is that could help offset the actual building location?
What we consider pervious, we do consider shell as pervious, and then also like anything green.
Yeah, but yet Shell, I don't think meets that standard for
Yeah.
commercial use.
Exactly.
That's all.
So that's really
But I'm
about
thinking
all
like,
that
you know,
we-
and all the setbacks for trucks and for employee parking and for, you know, that area to be more pervious. That's my
So
only thought.
I think it's very difficult in this, in this area, especially back here. You can see, so this is the property line. It doesn't go up to the curb. It's quite far back. So imagine if one of these buildings was demolished or got flooded, they would also have to meet the parking requirements. And it would be very difficult to do with that 0.7 impervious surface ratio. That's another reason why we proposed it as a higher ISR.
Well, the commercial area is very important to the area. I understand. I'm trying to get a balance. That's all.
Johns Pass Village is a different animal than any beach community around here. That's just the nature of the beast down there, and it is built out other than that one vacant piece of land, but it's built out, and I don't want to put the business owners in the position to where if we have a catastrophic event, I mean, it doesn't have to be a hurricane or tropical storm. It could be a fire down there because a lot of those structures have a lot of wood in them, you know, so we're just trying to get this to where that community, that business community can rebuild itself and open their businesses again. It's a protection for those businesses and really for the livelihood of this city because that area generates a lot of revenue for this city. The parking, not only for the beach, to go to the beach there, but for all the shopping there. It's the most popular tourist destination in the county. It's number one. And I think that's something we need to protect for the, not just the community Madeira Beach, but for the county and for the revenue and to help hold our millage rates down.
Jenny, if you saw one of these, or your example, that house or that building was rebuilt, 34 feet and parking required, would you see it as being parking underneath the building with 2 floors above, or what do you expect would be built?
So you can also flood-proof the ground floor if you're in this zone, if you're in this area. So the parking would probably still be in the back, the required parking, but it's really tight back there. Even if they applied for, say if one of these buildings was demolished or there was a fire, they could apply for a redevelopment, but that gives you an allowance of only the side setbacks. It doesn't give you an allowance for the ISR or the rear setback. So it would be really difficult to meet that parking requirement.
Okay, so this, for the first reading, this was passed with the change of keeping it at .7, correct?
I think this is the one that failed,
Like I said,
Okay,
and then we brought it up to discuss the issue of
Okay.
the ISR.
perfect, so we
And I
don't have to deal with trying to fix something.
So what we're discussing is whether or not we want to come back with a .70 or a .85. And that's why I say, because this is such a unique area, I think the .85 is the route to go. Because otherwise, we change the entire makeup of the village, and we'll lose businesses down there because they won't have room to build out.
I agree.
I have one more question, Jenny. Some of the businesses are strictly on grade, down on grade. Some seem to be raised a bit. I don't know if there's anything that allows, and when I say raised a bit, I'm talking about just, you walk down the sidewalk and it's 2 foot off the ground. I don't know if there's any, what happens with that land that's underneath of there? Is that, you have to keep it tight to keep rodents out of there, and there is no water infiltration in that area? You can't use that for impervious? For new construction, if could it be constructed in that same manner is where I'm going with that, and,
That it's like slightly raised.
yeah.
I believe in the code you can raise the grade 18 inches above the crown of the road, and that's the highest that you can go. So you wouldn't be able to go higher than that. So some of those are probably not compliant. Like if they were demolished and rebuilt, it'd probably have to go down. If they were like higher than 2 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to cause any other issues, but as far as the water runoff and filtration, you're almost at, 100%.
And a lot of
Impervious.
those are 100, around closer to 100% than that 0.7.
Yeah.
I don't have any figures. I haven't done a study down there, but just looking.
I'm just
on
saying,
the
let's say it was all
maps.
shell underneath, I don't know. And and the water was able to get under there. Again, I'm not trying to redesign everything, I'm just throwing some thoughts out.
That would
Things that
all
run through
be-
my mind.
Anything like under a building would be impervious.
So it wouldn't matter. I'm just looking at building codes and whatnot. Bear with me.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, though, and you've been to Johns Pass Village, I'm sure, many times, and how much of a different animal it is down there as compared to any other business area around. And that's what we need to
Understood.
keep in mind. So I would like to see this brought back to us at the .85.
And I will trust our experts as well at .85.
I agree.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this?
Bill Carnes, 410 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach. So just a point of clarification, when Commissioner Kerr asked about pervious or impervious pavers. So I've been building for 44 years. I've built, can't tell you how many structures all along Madeira Beach, residential, commercial. Right behind the 7-Eleven, I had traded some property with the landowner there. he owned a parking lot over on the Triangle property, and I built a new parking lot there. I built that parking lot out of Pervious pavers. So they do manufacture a Pervious paver along with the Impervious paver. You'll also see that example at Kitty Stewart Park and Caddies. Those pavers that are put in there are impervious, so the water runs through them. There's about a 2-foot deep rock base underneath there. So the purpose of that is the water goes through the pavers, goes into all of that rock base that's underneath there, and it goes away. You can drive by there on a, right after a very heavy rain, you go behind that 7-Eleven parking lot, there's not even a puddle in there. They work great, and that was one thing I wanted to talk about. Another thing, you know, I own some property down in the pass. I know there's a lot of people here that own properties in the pass that the .7 ISR is, it makes the building non-compliant right now. As Jenny showed you on there, between the roads being widened, roads being moved, there's buildings that go lot line to lot line, different owners, all the way down there. They go from the boardwalk to right up to their property lines almost. I've got a couple buildings down there that have over .95. I could never build them back. And these are institutional buildings that have been down there for 50, 60 years. So it's very important to all of the business owners here that in the event of a fire, or in the event of wind damage or a flood, that we can build back what's there now, and let's save the past. And I'd really like to see a little higher. I think .85 is fine. My personal property literally goes lot line to lot line. And it'd be a shame to lose that.
Thank you.
Dylan Hubbard, Hubbard's Marina. I'm not a property owner in Madeira Beach, just a business owner who rents from a property owner and multiple property owners in Johns Pass. And to me, it's a very important, what was discussed tonight is very important, a couple points. The millage rates, I mean, Johns Pass is a huge driver for Madeira Beach, and property taxes. Everybody likes to talk about how Madeira Beach has low property taxes. Well, that's thanks to Madeira Beach. So I really get confused why people don't want Johns Pass to be successful, and handicapping Johns Pass to a .7 makes absolutely no sense. Being in Johns Pass for 4 family generations, if something came through like a big hurricane, which we've seen Johns Pass completely flood on a tropical storm, not even a hurricane, recently, we would be in a really big situation to where we can't build back what's historically been there. My grandfather helped this city commission back in the day build that boardwalk. This is a huge tourism driver for my family, for the city, for the whole region. And I really would like to see, in my opinion, again, another important point that was brought up tonight is you're already reducing it. At .85, that's a significant reduction from where we are today at 100%. So in my opinion, I think we should be able to build back what we historically have had at 100%. So if you're going to handicap us, don't cut our knees off at 70%. Thank you.
Thank you. You must have been too darn busy tonight. Yes, sir.
I'm Tom Powers, Johns Pass Enterprises, which is Island Rags and Mad Beach Craft Brewing. I've been there about 30 years now. What you were asking about the different elevations, the buildings that are up that high, they were burned down at one time, and codes required them to come up 3 foot. My building is the one that you've been having a little arrow on all the time, and I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all this, and I'm saying, what does that mean to me? What's, you're talking about 0.7, 0.85, 0.9. What does that mean? Because the buildings down there, the front of my building, 6, 7 foot out from it is where the property line is. But the buildings are built, back in the day, they built them, it goes out another 7 foot from the overhang. That was done with a special encroachment that was granted by the city. I don't know the year, but it was granted because when the road went through, the new road where it is now, it used to come right down the front of the store. Well, that encroachment was granted by 14 foot from your property line. Consequently, all those buildings down there, those overhangs on the front are 6 foot from the building, and then the other 6 foot hangs over city property. On the back of the building, I've got 34 foot to the road, but I'm being told the setback is 25 foot because we've been trying to get through codes for 6 months now. I've had a contractor simply to put a concrete pad down to put a lift so we would quit sending stuff up the stairs because we have a restaurant upstairs, we have a brewery upstairs, and that's very dangerous. We even forklift upstairs. So I was going to spend about $80,000 or $90,000, and it seems like I can't get that through development because I can't get the codes department to make some kind of ruling on it because evidently I'm within setback, and I'm like 34 foot from the edge of the road. But yet when I stand there and look north and south, there's all these other buildings that are back there, some of them even within 10 foot of the road. But I don't, all this you're talking, I kind of got sidetracked there. What does all that mean? Whenever you say 8.5, what does that mean to my building?
Well, your building is probably at what, 100% right now?
Well, no,
On
it's
the
side by
pervi-
side, it's 100%.
On the pervious surface?
Well, side by side, it's property line to property line. On the front, of course, it's the sidewalk, and then the city property. On the back, we have 34 foot of asphalt. Is asphalt, do I dig up my asphalt and put gravel down again?
That's probably what would happen.
There, I thought I was making property improvements, and I bought that and put the asphalt down. I thought the city would like this, because it used to be gravel.
Yeah, and honestly, the gravel just ends up all over the place.
Right. But that's why I was
and-
trying, I'm hearing all this, and I don't understand what you're saying.
Jenny, can you do a better job of explaining it than I did?
I'll try.
Okay.
So your property is probably an ISR of 100%, meaning everything on your property is paved over or there's a building there.
Yes.
Currently, how the code is currently is you can have 70% impervious surface. So you take your lot and you can have 70% of that, which would be any pavers, it'd be your asphalt, it'd be your building. And then that 30% would have to be grass or something that water could go through. So if you look down in John's Pass, most of the properties are closer to like 100% impervious, similar to what you have there. And as for the setback, I'll bring this up. So here's the curb. You can see the Pelican Lane. Here's the curb. And then the property line is approximately right here where that white line is. So the setback right now is 25 feet. So many of these buildings are also not compliant.
Yeah, some of them is built out further than that.
Yeah, so that's the setback issue, but right now they're talking about the impervious surface.
Right, so am I going to be required to dig up my asphalt parking lot and put gravel down in order for me to put a lift up the back of the store?
No. But say if your building was demolished,
Yeah.
something unfortunately happened, then you would have to build to current codes. So your building setback would have to be 25 feet from that property line, so you lose a little bit of the building,
Well, actually, 20.
depending on how it is. And then you wouldn't be able to asphalt that whole back. You would have to have 30%, something that's pervious.
Well, I could build back like I am now because except I don't put asphalt at the back.
Correct.
Yeah, because I have 25, actually 34 foot and 36 foot in one section, but I have a clear 25 foot to the property line.
Okay,
And
so
it's-
yeah, you
it's
would be
straight
fine
across
with the setbacks,
So I just have to dig my asphalt up.
yes.
Okay.
That's only if you go to rebuild, though.
Only if I'm going to rebuild. Well, I hope I don't have to rebuild.
Yeah.
Yes.
We all
Let's
hope
hope not.
that, for sure. Thank you.
Contractor's coming in the morning to talk with your people about trying to put that lift up the back, and for 6 months, he's been beating his head over it.
Yeah, I know he's been talking to another
Yeah,
planner.
it's a simple lift, it's a safety thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Jerry Cantrell, 13 Street East. When I look at the information being presented, Ms. Rowan, and I know you did a good job with what you're trying to represent. I know of things where you can actually show data, and you can use color type forms to show what is the percentages. You keep pointing to five, 6 different buildings in there, which I mean, it's clear. They have a high ISR ratio. There's no doubt about it. But you can't differentiate that entire area based on 6 buildings. I know that there's areas in there that are highly pervious right now. They'll absorb water. And what I'm confused on, which I don't hear being addressed, which I'd like for you guys to address, is that there are areas there that currently aren't built up. All right, so if you pass this ordinance and make it to where it's 0.85 for the entire area, does it allow them to build at 0.85 and not restrict it to 0.7? So I think everybody in the community would agree that if they've already got a footprint down for a building, they absolutely should be able to build back. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is like the community. So it needs to be there. But there are areas that aren't built. That's not a clear picture of what's going on with ISR. It's buildings, and there are different ways to represent ISR to where it's actually factual statements and represents true data. ArcGIS does a great job of it. You guys have access to it. That's could have been done with ArcGIS, but I don't see any chloroplast. I can't tell you chromatography that's been done with it. So there's better representations. It's not clear what you're speaking about on that data. It leaves me concerned because as I look at that, I know there are areas that aren't built up yet. What happens to those areas if you pass this ordinance and say 0.85? Does it restrict those areas that aren't built to where they can only go to 0.7 and only allow the buildings that currently exist to go to 0.85? What's the deal there? That's what I would like to hear talked about. Because there are areas there that can currently absorb water and protect the environment, keep things from running off. There are ways to make pervious pavers, which if it's not in the code currently, maybe that's something needs to be addressed. The caddies expression, by the way, that was great. The caddies thing, they actually have a way to contain the flow of water. That's all you got to do. There are underground easements you can build that are actually fit right into the environment. They absorb the water, they help out. But if the code doesn't meet it, does that code need to be addressed there? All right, saying let's just build everything to 0.85 shouldn't be the answer, you know. But definitely let the businesses rebuild when they need to. That should be the answer. All right.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach, Florida. I have several concerns about the 2022-08. One of the things that changes with this dramatically is it will allow tourist facilities down there. These are hotels that are not currently allowed on John Pass Village. And we think these hotels could be quite large. This ordinance is a precursor to the Johns Pass Activity Center, in which the city wants to increase the density down there, the number of units, hotel units per acre from around 30 units to almost 90 units. So what we're looking at is a rebuilding, complete rebuilding of, I think, Johns Pass Village. The idea that we're forcing out small shopkeepers is because we have a bad storm down there is not what's driving this whole project, whether it be this 2022-08 or the activity center. What's driving it is the consolidation of properties down there. We have developers from outside the city coming in and buying up property there, consolidating these smaller plots of property and planning to build very large developments there. With the intensity with which they want to develop a hotel down there, the number of units per acre, you're looking at 10, probably 12-story buildings down there if they build to what they're projecting in the activity center. Just to give you an example of some of the major property owners down there, Benjamin Mala has about $16 million invested down there several years ago, probably worth a lot more money now. Bill Carnes and his partners, Marcus Winters from Caddy's, they dumped about $15 million in there, consolidating properties on both sides of, I guess, the Boardwalk Avenue, maybe 128th Avenue, it might be called that also. They bought properties on both sides. This is where Waltz anchors down one part of that area that's been a parking lot for a long period of time. Their plan is to build a very large hotel on that plot of land. So they're not the only people consolidating properties down there. There's Jennifer Luck and Nissan Hammy have invested about $9 million down there, consolidating a number of properties along Village Avenue. So this whole area is going to develop substantially differently than it is now. This is the old village down there that's probably going to go away as more people consolidate these properties. They've been bidding up the prices for the land there in anticipation that they're going to be able to build very, very large buildings there. We're looking at 10, 12-story buildings. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so next is BOC to discuss review plan development process. I don't know who put this on the agenda, but the floor is open for discussion.
I put it on the agenda, and a lot of the thought behind it is we tend to ask for, or part of the PD process is that the city asks for things in turn. So one of the things we usually end up getting is resurfacing of the street and adding curbs. And one of them was adding retail onto the first floor. I'm thinking we should have a better pick list going forward of what we ask from developers. Things like, do we request a certain percentage of their power comes from solar, or something else that the city? Do we want a park elsewhere, or is there something that we should have besides of this? Because the street, yeah, they pave a little bit more, but whatever that's there gets torn up. So I'm not sure that we get anything. They should just repair what they've done, repave it as part of that.
Dave, wouldn't the impact fees kind of address that? So, I mean, I know that when we've done PDs before, we've asked to do certain things, improve the sewer system, do things along the lines of that, and work with the county. But now that we're into this mode with impact fees, are we going to do both? Are we going to ask them to do certain things and charge them their impact fees on top of it? Not against it, I just kind of wanted to know where you're going with it.
I'm thinking, well, doing some of the things, I believe as Mr. Carnes got up and asked if, like repaving the street, can be used in exchange for the impact fees, and the answer was yes. So I'm thinking for a lot of what we're going to do, it's going to end up same as the past, unless we have a better idea of, or some things that the Planning Commission has in their pocket to say, this is what the city would like to do in the future. So I've got no problem with collecting everything as an impact fee, and then the city decides later. That works too.
Yeah, negotiating then on things that we would like to get done in
Yes.
lieu of the impact fee.
Yes. And even if it's a park and putting something in the park, putting a parking lot or putting the pocket parks we're going to talk about, you see people parking on grass. Can we put in, 2 or 3 spots for cars, or to get something for the city that's more for the residents, if it makes us.
Yeah, and that makes sense, and that's something as we have PDs come to us, those are things that we can brainstorm as a commission as to what we decide. I think a lot of that will depend on the location of the project and what we feel like we might want to get from a developer in lieu of impact fees. I mean, does that make sense? Because it's, what might work in one place is not necessarily going to work in another place too, so.
Okay, and then something that wasn't in my thinking at the time, but after talking to Linda and Jenny, do we want to put a max height, max floors, something like that on future PDs? Do we, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think Linda was saying that to get financing and things, they have a certain restriction, or they need to build so big. So the schooner was 8 stories. I don't really want to see 10 stories, 15 stories, and things like that in a future Madeira Beach. So do we want to put a 8-story, 7-story, whatever, as part of the PD to keep Madeira Beach the way it is? And this is coming out of the blue, so it's something to think about.
And I could see, it's got to be reasonable for the developers too, because this property has gotten so expensive that they've got to be able to turn a profit on these places. It's like I pointed out earlier, I showed y'all something on my street alone. 9 houses have sold recently, and they're all, a number of them are in the 7-figure range, and they haven't had anything done to them since 1953. And when you look at these lots on the beach or wherever, you can't expect a developer to go in and spend what these properties cost and to build a 4-story building. They've got to be able to recoup their investment, and and in turn, those things that they do dress the city up. And there's a vacant lot that is a part of a development that's going forward now, where they're wanting to build a retail and a parking garage. Well, I personally have spoken with the CEO of Palms of Pasadena Hospital. They would like to bring a healthcare facility to Madeira Beach. And that's the only retail we've got, and it would be a perfect area. And it would service this community with something that we desperately need. We need it for Madeira Beach. There's not one in the Reddingtons. There's not one in Treasure Island. And with the tourists coming here, we got no place for these people to go if they get hurt. So to me, that's a huge benefit to the community that they're bringing. But to say, and it's said that, the developer's adding 56 units, that's an absolute falsehood. There are already 44 units there. They're adding 12 units. So anybody that says they're adding 56 units is just not telling people the truth. And I've got no problem with height restrictions, but it's got to be high enough that these developers, with the cost of this property now, can turn a profit on it and make it a nice-looking building. And we've got developers here that have worked with people that live around them and have been over backwards to work with these folks. That one development, they've shaved off half the building so they didn't block anyone's view. They live here. They live right here in Madeira Beach. And for people to be putting out false information like they've been doing is unconscionable, in my opinion. So we could do that, David. I didn't mean to get on a rant there with you, but maybe we need a roundtable and see, I would have no problems with 8 stories. I don't think that's outrageous going by the other buildings that I see up and down here. We've got 2 right at 150th and Gulf Boulevard that are, I think, 12 stories. And so you've got to consider the value of this property now. We had a problem right here with the Cambria Hotel and the condominiums that are next to it. People fought the height there, so what happened? We lost our green space. The building got lower, the footprint got bigger. So shame on the people that fought that, because everybody's screaming for green space, but they don't want to let them have the height. And shame on the people that did that to this. I've been here 35 years, and I was looking forward to that being fixed up and having this town fixed up, because I bought here because Madeira Beach was a blighted area and it was all I could afford. And I was cheering when I saw that it was going to get fixed up, and shame on people that are fighting it. I'll get off my soapbox now. Anyone else?
The comment was made that it should be site-specific, because you might want something different in Johns Pass Village that you might want midway on Gulf Boulevard. But you might be onto something as far as like a checklist that can quickly refresh things that that the comprehensive plan is looking for, or the plan that was done, I don't remember when it was done, 2005, something like that. And then something we were talking about earlier with, how do we get tourism dollars to benefit the city versus the residents, whether it's with, ad valorem taxes, property taxes, or other fees, building fees, whatnot. And then we were talking about earlier impervious surface ratios. Well, maybe in Johns Pass Village, well, that's a big piece. Instead of repaving those public roads, maybe we use a system like Mr. Carnes said with impervious pavers, so we can take care of that filtration instead of worried about flooding. And any parking that's, if a hotel is done, any space that can be impervious or pervious, I'm sorry, I get the two confused. If the height is so restricted, but you have to have so many units to make it worthwhile, well, maybe there's a combination of where the city can benefit from a city-owned, city-run parking lot that's done in coordination with development, so that it may take a few years for it to pay for itself, but that's going to be a long-term revenue increase to the city and help keep property taxes down for the residents. And of course, there's always beautification things in our parks and our things. But I encourage like a checklist of things that that, and how is it going to benefit the city? How's it going to benefit most of the residents that don't live near that? So, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, Commissioner Carr, I like where your head's at on this, because we're being site-specific. There's going to be different areas of this town that you can build a little bigger, and some where it's near residential where you want to keep it a little lower. I mean, Happy, how big was that hotel you approved in Johns Pass? 87 stories. The one? It was huge. It was a big one, right? So, kidding, it's a joke. But you know, you're 1,000% correct. It's like a big clock here. You know, everything's got to kind of work together, because we do need the tax revenue. We do need things like that, and these guys who are building need to be able to turn a profit in order to take some of these blighted areas and turn them into tax-producing businesses. So yeah, I mean, it's that's what I'm saying. Kind of to say a PD, you can only do 5 stories, you can only do 6 stories, you can do it. I mean, there's certain areas I would say we do restrict height. There's others that obviously we restrict height. You'll never see it. Well, I shouldn't say that. When I'm sitting up here, I'll never vote for something 15, 16, 20 stories high. There's no Hyatt Hotel from Clearwater coming in here. But, you know, we just got to kind of just be flexible, kind of work with the people we're working with, because in the end of the day, as you said, it only benefits us down the road with the amount of tax revenue that's coming in. And if we can get a floor of parking as far as city tax revenue coming in, you know, yearly as well, all the more benefit. But those are the kind of things we can negotiate with people as they step to the
Right, I
table.
mean,
So thank you.
If you have a commercial space that, you know, that you have a parking garage that you can run, I mean, there's only so much of the, I don't like to use the word tax, because the tax revenue goes to the state, the tax revenue goes to the county. We get some of that back. I mean, there's exceptions, but parking, we get the whole dollar. We get the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the bread and butter of the city. So I think it's something we need to look at on an individual basis on the projects, but certainly pervious surfaces is something that we can take a very close look at. And if that's what we want to do, depending on the project, where they've got a parking lot or something, and we say, well, this is what we want you to do. We want you to spend money on this and do the pervious paving in the lot so that we've got that water going in. That would work, you know, put solar in and move us in that direction, put solar stations in the parking lots, or not solar, but electric stations in the lots. So maybe what we should do is, between now and our next meeting, each of us make a list of things that we think might be good to, you know, a wish list for PDs in lieu of whatever the impact fee may be, and just get back and take some time, and don't have a workshop that's so jammed up with stuff that we can't discuss it and move forward with that.
Sounds good, thanks.
Okay. Any public comment? Okay, next is proposed. Oh, okay, sorry.
Bill Carnes, 410 150th Avenue. I worked for many years to do a PD, the biggest PD that'll probably ever be done in Madeira Beach here with the Madeira Beach Town Center. I just wanted to give some facts so people understand how important redevelopment is. So we bought basically 7 acres total. We put in public space of almost 2 acres that we gave to the citizens of Madeira Beach. The Cambria Hotel paid $27,000 in property taxes before it was built. Today, well, 2021, it's $402,000. The Harbor at Town Center is a 38-unit condominium that unfortunately was brought from 6 stories down 1 floor to 5 stories. Pushed the building setbacks out, and now the buildings are closer. Subsequent to that, the new condo where the lot's cleared next to it is now packed right next to it. Instead of that condo building being all the way down by the fence, where we had 450 feet of green space in between the buildings. My vision for the city. I wanted to drive in, I wanted to see the park, I wanted to see a building, I wanted to see water, I wanted to see another building, I wanted to see water. Destroyed by a select few people in this town. The Harbor at Town Center paid $29,000 in property taxes. We're getting ready to close those units out. It's $418,000 in property taxes. A 1,400% increase. Right around the corner, I tore down an old apartment building. Dilapidated, they were condemned. And I built a 4-story building, beautiful building, the Madeira Del Mar. Was paying $11,000 in property taxes. Now it's $109,000. A 950% increase. I paid permit fees that went directly into the city of Madeira Beach, building fund. $350,000 for the Cambria, $300,000 for the harbor, another $300,000 for the next condo that's going in, and $100,000 for the Madeira Del Mar. That's $1.3 million goes into the city coffers. And instead of getting rotten fruit thrown at you, it sure would be nice for someone to say thank you. And that's what we did in just this one development here in Madeira Beach. And let's move Madeira Beach forward.
And while you're here, I also want to thank you for the $1.2 million that you spent out of your own pocket for ROC Park.
It was my privilege and honor, sir. Thank you.
One last comment. Jeff Beggins, I live 429 Boca Ciega Drive. I want to talk about PD for just a second, because I think a lot of people misunderstand or don't understand how valuable that is, right? And I'm going to speak from a resident perspective. I'll put a couple hats on. From a resident perspective, it's flexibility, it's creativity, and it's designed to not put limits on anything, because people have to sell you on what's good and what's right, based on what you want and what your constituents want in your district, right? That's the American way. That's how this works, right? Because we're all caught up in this good time that we're in right now, but I think everybody knows there's cycles. So what happens when the market's not good anymore? What happens when we hit what we know we will hit again, what we've hit before, and the city's hurting for revenue, and somebody wants to build something, and we need a fire truck, or we need some roads paved, or who knows, right, what could happen. We're in a weird time. So PD is there for the ability to ask, right, and come up with a wish list and negotiate hard. And the wish list is awesome, because I'll put my developer hat on. Now we can factor in, hey, they might want a fire truck. It's $280,000. Does that make sense? Well, it does if we do this. Then it's a negotiation and a conversation, right? To put in a box of it can only be 60 feet and this foot and this foot and this box. It doesn't make any sense, because what if somebody comes one day with a stepped up project that's low in the front and a little bit taller in one little section on the back corner? Who knows, right? But you can't take that flexibility away. You got to keep that just for the future. And you guys have the ultimate control, because you get to say no, right, if you don't like what the PD proposal is. And your staff's phenomenal about helping see what the city needs, right? So I think that is one of the jewels. I know there's people in this room, myself included, who own property in this town because of the PD, because we have the ability to bring forth an idea. And we have the risk of being told no, right? But we work well with the staff and with the city to try to bring something that makes sense for the city. So to try to cripple that or mute that or downgrade the PD is irresponsible for the future, because we're all not going to be here at one time. There'll be different commissioners. Let them have the say in the future. So to try to mute that or squash that is dumb. I think it's one of the biggest valuable assets inside the city, and I think we need to treat it that way and get what we need as residents, right, for the people that come in to bring new things to the city. So I think it's a phenomenal ordinance, and I think we can do cooler things with it, but it's a big asset to the city.
Thank you. Okay. Next is proposed charter amendment for the November 8th, 2022 general election. Who's on? Okay. There we go.
This one's a proposed charter amendment, and it would be up to the commission what you would like to do. This year, we faced an issue with a charter amendment that was approved in 2018. A proposed charter amendment was presented to the board, and the board approved an ordinance, and we put a charter amendment on the board. It was putting in place in the city charter as to when new commissioners would be sworn into office. And it changed a section of the city charter that at one time before 2019, that the swearing-in ceremony and the sitting commissioners going out would all happen at one meeting. And so this year, the new commissioners were sworn in before the end of the month in March, and at which time the sitting commissioners going out, that ended their term. So I was hoping that, or requesting that we try reversing that, put it on the, or changing it some, or putting it back on the ballot to see if we can change it back to where it was, where we can have the ceremony swearing in the new commissioners and the outgoing commissioners leave at the same time. You know, they get up after the new commissioners are sworn in, and the new commissioners come up and sit down. We do a new roll call, and then they choose their vice mayor. And then also, one issue that we had was that we had two meetings. We still had our workshop meeting, and we had a shade meeting that we had to have by a certain time, and we only had 3 commissioners because we lost 2 commissioners before the regular meeting. And I proposed, the charter amendment that I'm proposing would read the same as what it was, at that the first meeting of each newly elected member of the Board of Commissioners for induction into office shall be at the first regular Board of Commissioners meeting following the election, which is also in City Charter Section 2.2, which that is City Charter Section 4.8. But again, in City Charter Section 2.2, subparagraph B, it requires that the terms of all members of commission, including the mayor, begin at the Board of Commissioners' first regular meeting following the election and continue until their successor has been duly elected and installed. So we would do it at the same meeting as we have done in the past. So that, but it's up to the commission whether or not you would like me to have to direct the city attorney to prepare the ordinance. I have until August to give the elections office the ballot language to put on the November ballot. And if we get it approved in November at the general election, it could kick in before the March election in 2023.
Yeah, My only question on that is the overlap there. I mean, the outgoing commission, is the March commission meeting then going to be their last meeting?
Well, usually the regular meeting takes place before the election. 'Cause
Okay,
it's the second week, and the election is the third week.
so the swearing in would be at the workshop?
It
Or the
was
swear?
regular meeting, the
The
city
next,
charter said
okay,
regular
so
meeting.
their swearing in would be like at the April regular meeting?
Yes,
At the
yes.
start of the regular meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
well, we do old business first, which,
Yeah.
the minutes, and any second readings and public hearings that we have that the outgoing commissioners were all heavily involved in, workshops and all, they would be able to participate in those, and then after all, if there should be that type on there, after the old business, then we do the swearing-in ceremony for the new commissioners, and then they come up and sit, and we do a new roll call and continue from there.
Okay, works for me.
Mayor, can I jump in here?
Yes.
I have some thoughts on this, and I know that Clara had provided this to me and asked me whether I had any comments, and I've got a simpler solution, and obviously I should have talked to Clara about this before the meeting, but you can fix the situation just by removing the word regular. So it would read, the first meeting of the newly elected member of the Board of Commissioners for the induction into office shall be on the first meeting, or the first Board of Commissioners meeting following the election. So that would pick up the situation where we had a workshop. You're not calling it a regular meeting. You could be at the same thing, so that would be my suggestion. I think it's a little bit confusing by adding an additional language in saying that you absolutely have to have a meeting before the end of March. There may be a situation where you don't want it, but you're being forced to because the charter requires you to. In the situation that the city clerk has brought to our attention, then we all realized what was happening as it was happening, but the charter was the charter. But I think that, we can solve that just by removing the word regular. I don't know, Clara, if you have a thought on that, but because it would be any meeting.
Well,
Special meeting, workshop meeting, any meeting.
now, also in the city charter, the commission appoints their vice mayor at the first meeting, at the first regular meeting following the charter. Now, if it's a workshop, of course, they can't vote to appoint a vice mayor.
Correct. So you may have a situation where you have a couple of days where you don't have a vice mayor that has transitioned. So,
And changing that one word, is that going to need to be charter amendment? Is
oh
that
yeah,
something-
we'd have to go through the
Okay,
same
we'll
process.
have to
We
go
need to
through
be
the
all on
whole
the same
process.
page.
Okay.
We still have to amend the charter to fix the problem.
Okay,
That's another suggestion, and, and obviously, if the change is something that you want to make, then maybe the city manager and the city clerk and I can weed that out and bring it to you back in a format that we think will match all the other charter provisions, but would be acceptable based upon the understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. We're all trying to accomplish the same thing, where we don't have a lame duck situation where we have two commissioners that have been inducted but don't have the ability to appear at a meeting. So,
And that was the basis for the proposed change, is that it happens at the regular meeting because, as Clara stated, any outgoing commission members would be able to participate again, as Clara stated, in the old business.
Right, and it was voted on.
And they're voted on, so their term does not end until the induction of any new commissioners, which would happen at that regular meeting right after the old business is completed. And that's the basis. So what we're hampered by is the fact that the terms, essentially the terms ended at an awkward time, and then the induction had to happen, and then we were left with commissioners not being able to participate because of the language.
Correct.
So we could,
And also, you do have a meeting after the election in March, because
Workshop.
the canvassing board report is reported to the Board of Commissioners. It's usually at a special meeting or the workshop.
So in this situation, if you take out the word regular, it could be done at the special meeting. And we can always have a special meeting set immediately before, like we did tonight, before a work session as well.
And also, if you're doing it at the regular meeting in April, it gives the city clerk's office more opportunity to order the plaque and everything that we need to do for ceremonial following that election. Because sometimes it takes 3 weeks for that plaque to come in.
I think it just allows for a much clearer transition.
Yes, it does.
And again, the issue is the induction is when the existing term ends. And so if we have it at that first regular meeting, which would be the first regular meeting in April, the term of any of the existing commissioners that are not returning would be all the way through that regular meeting, and we would avoid the period that we had last month, where because the induction had to occur by the end of the month, but then they couldn't begin until that next regular meeting, it left that weird period of inactivity and only having three commissioners. So this, I think the first regular meeting is really what would clarify and eliminate having a time period with missing commissioners, for lack of a better term. So
Correct.
That works for me.
Do you have to add the word public instead of regular, the first public, just in case you're in a position?
They're always public.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that you've had in the shade, there was a special meeting. I know it was only for the introduction that it was the shade meeting. That's my only point, just a thought.
Can we just call the March regular meeting at a date other than the second Wednesday of the month, so that it is following the election and it worked like it did last year? You wouldn't have time to get their plaques and everything else, but it would be, you would get it handled in March, and then you would have the people for the workshop.
The meeting is before the election.
It's too close to the, I was just
And
about
we're
to say that.
having the elections now, when the supervisor elections are having them, which is, our charter was always the second Tuesday in March.
Right.
And for instance, if there's a recount, then that pushes it that much farther, closer towards the end of the month by the time that process finishes.
Okay.
Okay, I would say if I understand everyone, we push forward with the first regular meeting and after the election.
Following the election. Okay.
Okay, and City Charter Section 2.2.
Can I comment?
Sure.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue. Tom and I don't always agree, but I think he's got a perfect solution to it. I thought it was very awkward this year, the way the transition took place. The only other comment I'd make is probably a little negative, I guess. It's when you have that first meeting, the first couple of meetings, when you have several new commissioners, there's a need to slow down the speed and number of items probably on the agenda unless they absolutely have to be done. There was just a lot thrown at the new people, and they need time to digest what's going on and understand what's taking place. But Tom's suggestion is very, very good. Thank you.
Okay, Clara, is that all you got on this? Or we've?
Yes, for the.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, next is 2021 Board of Commissioners Policy Handbook. Have y'all had a chance to review that and see what changes you may want to make? This is something we do every year, and I'm good with it. I did want to point out page 5 of 19, commission conduct with the public meetings, bullet point number 1, Board of Commissioners will refrain from use of personal electronic devices on the dais and/or in a public meeting unless authorized by the Board of Commissioners, and that's something I brought up in our last meeting, and I want to be sure that we are following that. Does anyone else have anything? This kind of gets beaten up every year, so it's pretty.
I did take notice of that, but it was mentioned that it was approved from the city managers. Is something that needs to be addressed in here? Or I don't know, maybe talk to Mr. Trask? I don't recall. But I felt it was counter to what.
Right.
But the same thing here is counter.
Well,
Not that I'm looking at it.
You're not
but-
using it, though.
Not using it,
That's,
yeah.
So.
But, it is an electronic device, so
Yeah,
I
I just
don't know
think-
if it needs to be addressed or not.
I just, for me, I would rather the city be the custodian of information. So I think, to me, that stays in. That's why I wanted to point it out. And that's why I brought it up at that last meeting, so.
So Mayor, did you want to address the issue of whether if it's a computer, if it's a city-issued computer or a city-issued iPad, that would be acceptable to be used on the dais?
I have no problem with a city-issued computer where we have the retention of the records that are handled on there.
Understood. Because that position, or provision specifically references personal electronic devices.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think, the reason that was put in was people were texting other people and reading the text on the thing. In my position, I own a 24-hour store, and there's stuff that does pop up on my phone. I'm happy to turn it off, but, I would like just the ability to just keep it where I can see it, that if something comes up, I'll go step outside. It says on the dais, right? So, I just don't, I don't want to violate the rule, but I certainly, we live in a second-to-second information age. If we totally turn everything off, but I'll do whatever you guys want me to do, either way.
Anything else? Anyone else have anything in the handbook they wanted to go over?
No, I'm fine with the handbook
Okay.
the way it is.
Any public comment on this? Next is 2022 Independence Day fireworks. Hi, Jay, long time no see.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Appears my memo is not attached in there for some reason, so this will be verbal. I'll try to be as quick as I can. So long story short, we put out an RFP for fireworks. It was about that time to do it anyway. Based on the requirements we were looking for, we received 0 responses, which is very helpful. So I solicited individually to some different companies, one that we'd worked with in the past and another one that was kind enough to return an email. So long story short, I have 3 options that are in there is for Independence Day. The price, we did do the RFP, and the prices are well within our decision-making process, but the dates are different, so that's why I'm bringing it here. 2 of the options are on July 3rd, 1 is July 4th. Looking at the 3 contracts that you guys have in front of you, the first one is from Angry Unicorn, which is a display company. And I'm just going to sum up what's in those long packets. They have an 18 to 20-minute display with 2,900 shell count quoted at $27,000. That's on the 3rd. The FDU LLC, which is the same company we've used in previous years, we have a long-standing relationship with us, provided us July 3rd and July 4th. Both 24 minutes, both 3,400 shells. On July 3rd, it's 29,000. July 4th, it is 30,000, which is the full amount of our budget. They do provide also a 3% additional product if we pay in full, which we typically take advantage of. It gets us a little bit more. So the reasoning behind this is, we have done the 3rd in the past, and then we've done the 4th pretty much every other time. We were looking at staffing, overtime, the sheriff's office expenditures, everything beyond the fireworks budget, seeing if there was a way to be, I guess, more. Yes, sir.
What day of the week is the 3rd?
The 3rd is a Sunday.
Okay.
And the 4th is a Monday.
Okay.
So the city is closed on the 4th of July, and the city observes overtime pay for the day that the 4th of July is observed. So if staff is working on a Sunday, if they are working within their 40 hours, it is not overtime. If they're working on the 4th of July, which many of us, for sanitation, there's a lot of folks that already are working on the 4th of July, but this was just an opportunity to maybe offset some of those expenses. And again, it's creative thinking. If we just want to, no pun intended, go forth on the 4th and do what we usually do, then we can. But I just wanted to present the options. I do know that the sheriff's office, I spoke with them about this. Their focus on the 4th of July, regardless of us doing fireworks or not, is getting people off the beach at nighttime. So it's going to be a nightmare, traffic-wise anyway. They said that the 3rd, either way, they're going to deal with the same things. They're still going to be getting people off the beach on the 4th, but the 3rd might allow them to schedule differently and more effectively, because if there's 4th of July events all over the place.
Right.
3rd is fewer events. They still have some. And then from a staffing perspective, we can look at the week ahead of that and allot time to not hit overtime during that week and all that stuff. So again, it's just creative accounting to try to make it more cost effective. As you see, the difference between the 2 days is either $3,000 or $1,000. So it's not a huge amount of savings there, but it's just providing options. So
More of a personal preference than anything.
yes, exactly.
So, now, are we going to do this at the school? We're not going to try to get a barge again this year, are we?
Yes, it would be at the school. I've some of these companies I called after the RFP, knew it was me and said we can't provide a barge. That was before they said anything else. It's become very difficult for that to take place, and I know we fought that for many years leading up to this. But the school loves it. They actually ask us, when it's going to happen, so they can be ready for it. Okay. So.
If you drive across the Franklin Bridge, you'll see where all the barges are.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
I'm okay with either day.
I kind of like the 3rd.
Yeah.
I mean, people, kind of would be the only game in town per se, because then we'd have the 3rd and the 4th, because some of our residents do fireworks displays that are equal or better. They're more expensive than the ones that we do. But I also think, again, you're also giving people, the next day they have off anyway, whereas Monday, they got to go to work on Tuesday. So
Right.
I think it'd be kind of cool to try it. I mean, what do we got to lose? We haven't done one in 2 years.
Did
we do a fireworks?
4th of July? We've done.
Did it last year.
We did do it last year. The year before, we didn't do it. Right.
Yeah, and getting traffic out of here is going to be easier on Sunday,
Yeah,
I
agree.
would think. Unless people figure, well, they're having it, we're hanging at the beach, and that could be good for us too, so.
Okay.
Okay, Megan was shaking her head about something. Was that about doing it on the 3rd? Okay.
3rd is. Yeah.
Okay.
He's trying to voice.
It really- Yeah, our preference would be on the 3rd, but we wanted to bring it to all of you
Okay.
to provide the input. So,
Works for me.
As a traditionalist, I'm thinking the 4th, but that being said, a lot of people have enjoy their get-togethers, their parties and that would give them that Sunday. So given that it's on a Sunday, they'd be able to have a full evening party, watch the fireworks, and still have the 4th to celebrate and enjoy on the beach or however, because most of them are going to have the day off, so
Yeah.
I'd be okay with the 3rd.
Yeah, and not have to get back to work on Monday morning, so.
Nope, thanks.
Dave's looking to be the party animal that night. Okay. Any public comment? Next is software licensing agreement with Clarion LLC.
So Mayor and Commissioner, this item that we've actually brought, it was brought at the the regular meeting that I wasn't able to attend. This is the software that the city has been using. We did not have a formal agreement for the use of our financial system. So our ledger, our accounts payable, accounts receivable, fixed assets, et cetera, commonly known as like an enterprise risk or enterprise-wide software. So we obtained quotes that are listed up on the screen in the packet from 5 other providers. And again, a Clarion came in at the lowest. Since this time, I have had some questions and concerns from residents regarding how we actually proceeded with this, and are we in fact complying with our purchasing procurement ordinance. We, again, because we felt it would be under the 30,000 threshold that we were required to obtain quotes. That's where we ended up with. This was, I guess, when the commission approved the hiring of a firm to serve as the city's treasurer and finance director, the software came with that firm, that vendor, but again, it was just not formally approved, hence why it's coming before you as a separate agreement and also ensuring that we're complying with city codes. So that's what has happened. At this point, how we proceed is really guidance from the commission. We really have several options. We can proceed with the Clarion. We could issue a formal RFP, RFQ, because likely the cost would exceed, certainly the replies would be more than $30,000. And the other option is to continue with the existing software that the city had been using. So those are the options. We're well into using the Clarion software. We have been for more than a year, I believe, at least the last year, and transitioning from the previous software. So really looking for guidance. The software is functional, it works. It's probably approaching 95% of where it needs to be. There's a few areas that are still being developed for the software. And again, based on the cost, it would appear to be the least expensive, and again, because we've been using it, would require very minimal additional work to do that. My concern is really how we got to this entire process, that the reason I think you wanted to discuss it with myself being present at the meeting.
Yeah, and because of your financial background, I wanted your blessing on this for me, because you're just coming in, and I want to know that you're comfortable with it also.
I'm comfortable with the software. I know it's in development. We're the sort of the test organization for it, which is positive. It has a few drawbacks as well, but I'm confident that the software does work. I just wanted to make sure that the commission was, and it's certainly that it passed our legal process and met with mainly our procurement ordinance, and that's the reason why I mentioned whether we go back out for a full RFP, which is probably what should have happened more than a year ago, but for some reason that did not happen.
Robin, it's working?
I think it's working as, so far, I mean, like I said, I'm over, close to 95%
Okay.
confident it is working. I mean, I can have the staff kind of give their thoughts, or certainly have Andrew provide us some input on that, but it is working. It has a few areas that we need to improve on, but we're getting to that point where we'll make sure that it fully functions as intended.
Mr. City Attorney, we haven't violated anything, we're good to go?
So I've had Rob Edgenfelter, the procurement attorney in our firm, review this and the process and so forth, and so he has been involved for the past couple of months. I had my concerns in the beginning relative to, Andrew being the principal of this software company and Andrew being the finance director and the treasurer here. I was worried about an argument or some argument that it would be a conflict of interest to do this, and we've worked through that. We're comfortable with that now. And so it's just a matter of, is this the software program that you need and want? Obviously, if the price is right compared to the other ones that have been done, then this is right for you to go ahead and make a decision, so.
It works, it's legal, and the price is right. You got my vote.
Okay, so it will have to come back to the commission
Correct.
meeting so that we can vote on it.
Yes.
But as long as I know our city manager, with his financial background, is comfortable with it, I'm more than happy for Clarion to pay the city the $28,000 to get to use it here.
The other way around. Yeah. He didn't catch it.
Wait a minute. I think I did catch that.
I was just trying to see if you were awake. Andrew. Okay, so if we can have that on the agenda for the next meeting.
All right.
Is there any public comment on this? Next is discussion of potential parking changes, overnight, 24-hour, business employee, resident.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, in my 4 months here, receiving numerous comments regarding parking. That's likely because I'm very inquisitive and communicate with so many visitors, but also residents. These were a few items that I wanted to bring to your attention, also for some policy guidelines. For overnight parking, we currently we only allow overnight parking for visitors by virtue of purchasing a weekly or a monthly permit. And then the parking is restricted to certain lots in the city. I know the item says that it's allowed except at Archibald Park. We currently do not allow it also at the 129th or the Johns Pass Park parking lot. In reviewing how we manage this, the administrative portion of this is a little bit, there's just an administrative portion that is, for lack of a better term, a little burdensome. It's a manual process. It requires applicants they can submit the application electronically or the information over the phone, but then we have to provide them an actual hang tag that then they need to come and pick up, or I think we've mailed it on occasion. We were looking to add a lockbox here at City Hall so folks could come and pick them up. Apparently, what we've done in lieu of that is leave them under the doormat, which is obviously not ideal, but that's been the process. So the suggestion for this is that we go to simply allowing our meters to work 24 hours. And my suggestion is that all lots, with the exception of Archibald and the Johns Pass Park parking lot, which is what we're currently doing. The difference is that we would eliminate the entire administrative process. Anyone looking to park overnight as a visitor would simply pay at the kiosk or pay via their phone or pay by text, which we have in order, and the rate would be $3 an hour. There's positives to that, is that it eliminates all the administrative that I mentioned. A little bit of the negative is that depending on how many nights you're looking to stay, it could be more than the current $100 a week. What we don't know is the length of how many nights visitors are staying. Just about all of them, at least the tickets that I looked at, since this change went into effect, the rates increased in August, by the way. They went from $60 a week to $100 a week, and monthly from $120 to $200. And since that time, almost every permit that we have sold says that it's for a full week. But we know that not every user has stayed in or utilized the lot every night. Some people have been here for 2 or 3 nights, but we don't know that for 100%, other than we know that the vehicles were not physically parked at the lots for 7 days. So it seems most people, they buy the weekly pass and they request for the hang tag to put a full week on there. So in other words, some are staying 1, 2, or 3 nights because that's what they tell us when we've asked them, but they simply want the full week to be listed on the parking permit. I don't know if some people maybe are giving it to someone else, or maybe they're reselling it. I mean, we don't have any evidence of that, but that could be happening. But regardless, what this does is simply, again, allow the meters to be functional for 24 hours. What we have not looked as to how the enforcement side poses a little bit of perhaps to do this on a test basis, because we would have to have an additional person or part-time for enforcement if we were to look how to enforce this for visitors parking. If we begin to advertise to visitors, you no longer need to come in and get a permit, you just pay at any of the lots. And if you're going to stay there from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., it's 10 hours, it would be $30.
City Manager, this is a software, right, into the...
Correct, for all the...
So why can't we put buttons on there for a week, to pay for a week and to pay for...
Well, that's what we would reprogram and allow for that.
So why, so I mean, somebody that's going to stay for a week or for 3 or 4 days would hit the week button, or if they're going to stay for 18 days, would still hit the month button to get the savings. And they can do that calculation on their own. They're pretty smart.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how it would work. It's really just a programming, and then for us to announce and publicize that no longer visitor parking passes, the meters are available 24 hours.
Do we normally have enough parking, taking Archibald and Johns Pass Park out to meet the need of people that want to park overnight?
So we have so far. That's the downside of this, is what if the lot is completely full? That's the downside to this. I don't anticipate, but I mean, it could happen.
Is there any reason why Johns Pass Park, since we own Johns Pass Park, couldn't be utilized as an overnight parking spot?
We could. We had some issues.
Right.
But I think those have been have been addressed. So we could. I was just.
Yeah,
we could add it.
I would say this way, we're going to, and if we run into a problem, then we readjust and we go from there. That means we're not charging enough. Yeah. That's pretty much what that would mean. But yeah, I would say just, you guys, this is an administrative function as far as I'm concerned. You guys can.
Well, because parking can be, I think, passionate, for lack of and in 28 years in government, or almost 28 years, I've had parking for 25 years of that, and especially a larger city up north here. So in addition to, and this is related to one of the 3 items on here for business employee parking, mainly at Johns Pass, but this is what employees and employers had been purchasing for employee parking. And the reason the business is on here is because concerns from businesses that the $200 a month became a little bit too pricey. And also what is not in the agenda item, but thank you to, I had compiled it as well, but Robin Miller with the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber provided to me is what our neighbors do. So this is what Treasure Island does for visitor parking. They have their meters 24 hours. Of course, much bigger, more parking spaces. We have approximately, unless Jamal, if I'm incorrect, about 530 thereabouts parking spaces that we manage that are available 24, that are currently available to the public at large. The resident parking permit would not apply. We would not be changing that so that residents could park overnight in the city parking lots. That is currently a restriction that exists, and so I would not recommend that we change that. Currently, residents can park, I think, from 6 a.m. till 11 p.m. at the lots, or midnight.
But they could park if they paid.
Sure, yeah, if they want to pay, yes. Yep.
If we allow it overnight.
Well-
My biggest problem was the problem we had down at the Johns Pass parking lot and enforcement on those off hours. But other than that, if those particular lots are, if you're not allowed to park there 24 hours, then that eliminates that problem with policing.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good to me, but I understand the businesses with employees with the problems they're having with the cost of that.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up here.
Yeah. Okay.
So the real issue with the overnight parking is people sleeping in their vehicle?
Well, it's currently prohibited in our code, and it would remain that you could not sleep in your vehicle. Again, the sheriff, as they patrol, they
So the
encounter
sheriff
that.
could police that?
They can police that. The only item administratively is enforcing to ensure that people do pay the meter, as we would have to add that function to ensure that people are paying the meter. I mean, you have people all over that, if you live somewhere long enough and you know enough, you can occasionally figure out how the enforcement works. And 3 of the 4 cities I've worked in, you can figure out the enforcement. And so people get clever enough, just as we will bring at a later workshop, but we do have free parking currently in Madeira Beach for anybody to park for free. We're not advertising it, obviously, but that's something that we need to address as well. And again, but just to, if you're around long enough, you can kind of figure out where there may be free parking and how the enforcement functions. Any other questions regarding overnight?
I'm just nervous about you're going to have more people in parking lots hanging out and making noise for the neighborhoods and things like that. So it would be nice to keep the system we have. We can change the price, whatever, but have it where they can buy or pick up the tickets at the kiosk so that we get the Mary Ann out of the process.
So that's right. So we could probably program, you mean to still have, though, an actual physical pass, or electronically at the kiosk they would pay for?
They would pay for it at the kiosk, and I don't know if they'd get a pass that they'd stick in their car
Yeah,
or.
they
if it
wouldn't,
would
I mean,
just
we
be-
could
we would have
electronically,
it.
okay. That is also, I think that's something we could do, Jamal, just as a programming, if you want to use, come up. Oh, yeah. And I don't know, this is Jamal, our parking supervisor, for a little over a month, almost.
There's a lot we can do with the software itself. So as far as like programming limitations for the software in the meters itself, The ticket itself will be printed. Well, actually, we're steering away from that, but just as they purchase time, it's in our software, so it's right in our handhelds, and we can kind of manipulate the times we come in as far as patrolling as well, to where we don't have to put the individual at risk as far as the complete 24 hours. There's just ways around restricting enforcement, and then also the lots are, I believe, far enough away for no issues with the residents as well. So as far as like restricting the amount of time they stay as well, you can program that into the meters. So if you want them to only purchase 7 days, you can do that. There's a lot of restrictions you can apply to
So
it.
Commissioner Hudson, we could look, that is an option as well, as if we program at the machines or certainly via the app using your phone, so we can do that, and it still eliminates the administrative process here, but we give that as an option, and we could keep it at the same rate as we currently have, unless I misunderstood your comment.
Same rate or a different rate, whatever.
Well, increasing the rate might restrict traffic as well, just as we have it right now. Of course, the $3 an hour might bring in more traffic, which overall is what we want. But at the same time, if we raise a bit, it might restrict,
Well, at this point, we wouldn't, if we kept it the current rates and simply reprogrammed, so just a programming fix, that wouldn't require any change to any of the we wouldn't have to change anything.
And as far as patrolling in the past, we've done it to where we'd come in from 5 to 6 a.m. and patrol, and there's not too much activity. The people that have paid, we can clearly see that with the red hook, and the pass that they were presented from the city itself. So with it being all brought to us in our handhelds from the meters itself, we're able to pinpoint also where people are paying, to where it's just a better overall view.
So we can do that, if we can certainly look to do that, and that way the rates are still the 100 and 200 for visitors. We just reprogram the kiosks in the app. And that way, that should alleviate what you had brought up of people just buying, say, going at 3 in the morning and buying 2 or 3 hours and creating loud noise or ruckus. Because they would be required to purchase either a week or the month. And so, as a group of 4 or 5, just folks going to go to a lot and pay $100 at 3 in the morning to cause problems? Probably not.
Even with the current staff we have, we can delegate the hours we have currently to we have someone from 5 a.m. to 5 a.m. to so on from three shifts, to where we're able to cover without even working 24 hours. So
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So that's,
Okay, so is this something we want to try then?
yeah. If you're okay with that, that's how we'd like to proceed.
I'm okay with it if you want to.
And then the business employee, again, we have not had a category for selling either weekly, monthly, or even daily parking passes to accommodate employees mainly at John's Pass Boardwalk and Village. Businesses and employees from there were previously buying the visitor passes, usually for the month, but again, that rate has gone up. I think it was originally 75, then 120, and last August it was increased to 200. So several businesses, as well as the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber, have suggested we create a category and allow for a monthly pass for employees. And again, mainly it's been at the Boardwalk and Village, and whether that rate would be, I don't, $40 or $50. Again, our neighboring cities, and at least one city up north charges, I think, $45 for the month. Of course, they have a lot more parking than we do, but that's also something we were looking to get your input on.
How many employees are we talking about? Do we know?
So in the past, when it was about 75, we were typically selling about 30 a year, and that's gone down to 4.
In this city?
This year, yeah, here in Madeira Beach.
It's gone down.
So it's not a
because of the-
gigantic number of passes, but, I mean, could this make it more than 30? That's the downside, is that we could have 50. I mean, I think well, I know it's at least one business owner here, and but typically, from the data that we have, and we didn't have that great data going back a few years, but typically a business would have anywhere from 2 to 5 employees, whether the business would buy it or they would send their employees here to buy the monthly pass. But since the rate went to 200, it's almost gone down to 4 that have been sold.
The 200's ridiculous. Let's take that off the table. That's kind of crazy. What I would like to see happen, and I can totally sympathize with the labor issues that we have down the pass. Trust me, I have them where I'm at, and I have free parking. So I think, what would be the process, Robin? Obviously, they wouldn't buy this at a kiosk because they'd have to prove that they would have to come here and buy.
I think they would, yeah, so that's the, but.
Well,
but
I mean,
it's-
that would be, if there's only 30 of them, that's not a big deal. I think that's something we got to keep a close eye on, though, because we certainly don't
Yes.
want to cannibalize our parking. I've got no problem doing it at $50. I mean, me personally, I think that's fine. That's a pretty fair number. It's actually a reduction from the 75, and the business owners there, and I get it. Look, I mean, I would try to, I don't think, and I hope nobody takes offense to this, and I love the people in the past, I don't think it's really incumbent on the city to go into their business model, because their business model had to include parking for their employees at some point. So that's cool. I think $200 is ridiculous. So if we bump it down to $50, let's see, we can always have this discussion again, right? I mean, I think that's kind of a fair way to do it. If it bumps up and all of a sudden, there's 500 people in the past getting $50 things, and they're asking their friends to buy them a pass for $50 a week. Yeah, I just don't want to see that happen. But
Right.
it's easy if they're coming in to get the pass. It's easy to calculate. It's easy to monitor, and then we can have this discussion in 3 months and see where we're at.
And we would create criteria for what the requirements would be for.
Pay stub or something.
Pay stubs, ID, I mean, probably verify with the owner.
Okay.
Call
What-
Dustin 4 or 5 times.
Are there any less convenient spaces that could be designated for
So
that?
what we have I guess within the last year is allowed the parking to occur at the Johns Pass parking lot and the 130th Street lot. If those fill up, when they say their shift is from noon to 8, and they arrive at 11:45, and then they simply go north until they find a space. So they're allowed to park all the way up to 136th.
I wonder if, because the Johns Pass parking lot is used so much for people going to the beach, I wonder if we need to, restrict it from the 130th Street parking lot north to the small parks that are, or parking lots that are right there at the beach.
I mean, what I've been told is typically the need is, during the busier time of the year, but typically late morning through the early afternoon. So it seems like a lot of the employees arrive before those lots really start to fill up. But the part of the issues that we sell 50, say it's 100 and everyone's parked at Johns Pass parking lot, and then there are limited spaces for the public at large.
That's my major
Yeah,
concern.
that's
is-
and so we will,
So
I
if
mean,
I
we would
think,
monitor.
If we have a lot that's a block or two away that doesn't get used very significantly, offer a less rate there, and if they would rather pay more and park closer, at least you're trying to work with them.
Yeah, I think that becomes a labor-intensive exercise for us then, though, to try to monitor which cars are parking where. Let's just try this. In my opinion, let's just try this. Let's see what happens. And like I said, we'll have data to go off of in a couple of months, and we can readjust it. We're going into a slower time here too. Let's get everybody acclimated. We want to help obviously, more people parking there, the more revenue we get, and with the 50 cents extra an hour that we're getting, we're good to go. So let's try to help these guys out if we can.
Okay. And while we're on this, while we're talking about parking, and it's something I'm going to want to put on a workshop, and this hopefully is a lesson to newer commissioners that I love going through the workshops, but maybe we need to reevaluate how many items we get on a workshop. Otherwise, we're going to have late dinner brought in for everyone. But what I was going to say is that I have spoken with somebody that is on the board of Forward Pinellas, and I mentioned the possibility of maybe making Johns Pass Village a hub for the Sun Runner, and basically an express bus with few stops along First Avenue North and South. Everybody's seen the fiasco that is. But doing that to help employees coming out to the beach and to the village, and also taking tourists from the village to downtown St. Pete. And that's something I'd like to see us workshop and see if that's something we want to pursue and get that put in at the village. Because if they come here and basically we have that as a hub, then employees can get on the trolley and service hotels and restaurants both north of us and south of us, and take tourists downtown. So it's kind of a win-win for us, I think.
And Mayor, the last one on this is if there's any comments or anything regarding the resident, only because I had some businesses bring this up but currently we provide, for residents, it's free to get your pass, and there are a maximum of 3 per household or per dwelling. That's where we currently are, and it was, our neighbors do charge a St. Pete Beach $10 a year. For resident passes, Treasure Island $45 per year. And Treasure Island limits you to 2. I don't recall what St. Pete Beach limits you, but.
Yeah, I thought St. Pete Beach was more than that. They used to be 30, so they've cut back if that's.
So we can leave it as is, no change, but just
I'm fine
to leave
with
it.
Ain't broke, don't fix it, and I don't want pitchforks at the next meeting sitting out
wanted to
front
bring
here.
that
So
up.
just leave it alone.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Any public comment on this?
Tim Johnson, I'm on the board for the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber. I'm going to be real brief. Thank you. The employees down at Johns Pass have been talking to us about for a while, and your actions tonight are going to be very helpful. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
How's it going? Dustin O'Neill, Sunshine Scenic Tours. My wife and I own a pirate ship, Dolphin Quest and Shark Boat down there. So we're here 3 years now in June with the business, and first year $75 for passes. We're buying a few to help out with parking for some of our employees. We've grown a little bit. Now we have more employees with the addition of the Shark Boat. If we were to buy that pass at $200 a month for the 9 employees that we have on a daily basis, it'd be over $18,000 a year for parking. So if you guys can help us out with that, that'd be great. You're right, Mr. Andrews, in your business plan, you do allow for parking, but it's impossible to plan for all of the things that happen, over the course of a year with everybody coming down from all over the country, taking up all the parking that there is. And we've been thinking about it for a long time, so we do have some suggestions maybe just to think about when you guys are discussing. Opening up that pass so that you can use it anywhere, all the meters or any of the parking lots that are available, we feel would help to alleviate some of the issues that we've seen with the parking pass in the past, which is that when we were buying the pass, you could park at 129 lot over there on Madeira Beach, and I think that was the only lot we could park at. Yeah, that was the only lot that we could park at. So some of our employees would come in later in the day, and there wouldn't be any parking.
Right.
So we just paid all this money for a parking pass we can't use. So if it was a pass that could be used anywhere, I think that would help out a lot, and I think that it would naturally kind of flow better as people come in different times of the day, people leave different times of the day, spots open up, and that kind of thing, just in other lots. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys for putting it on the docket.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, next is discuss review FDOT proposed pedestrian crosswalk at Gulf Boulevard just north of 134th Avenue.
So Mayor and Commissioner, we, Megan Wepfer, Public Works Director, and myself met with the Florida Department of Transportation, their pedestrian bicycle manager and staff. They received a request from a business on Gulf Boulevard to perform a review whether the need to put in a pedestrian crosswalk. The business, the events and weddings business on Gulf Boulevard, their guests they will cross Gulf Boulevard and for either to take pictures or to have weddings out there and then go back to the event venue. Therefore, when they do that, which is most of their events, they had been utilizing, paying for Pinellas County sheriffs to assist them to cross the road as opposed to just folks running across the road. And dodging the traffic. So FDOT hired a firm to do the study in this area, and that's included in the packet. I think I'd provided it previously to all of you. And their recommendation based on the vehicle analysis, the observing, putting cameras out there, looking at people who were crossing but not at the crosswalks. The closest crosswalks to the businesses that made the request are about 470 feet north and about 670 feet to the south. So the study that the firm, they called it the mid-block crossing assessment, their recommendation is to add, to do some curb cuts to correct the sidewalk, but they did recommend to add a crosswalk just north of 134th. So they, in reviewing their study, and it's extensive, it's about 40 pages, which seems like an awful lot regarding a crosswalk, but they really looked at some very in-depth detail of the vehicle counts, speeds of cars, and then just observing, as I said, they'd placed a camera and observing where people were crossing between, again, the two existing crosswalks that are there. So their recommendation is to add that. They wanted the Madeira Beach City Commission to have a discussion, if we need to have a discussion, but eventually they would like, if the commission would like to proceed with this. I'm under the impression that we can't completely prevent it, but I mean, I think we could have, if there was significant objection to it. Again, looking at the data, it seems reasonable based on their findings to add one there, but I understand that, again, there's two within essentially, if you average it out, within 500 feet of where the crossing takes place.
I'm surprised that they want to put a crosswalk there, but they don't want to put a traffic light at the entrance of Johns Pass Village.
Well, we may be getting closer to having the
Okay.
traffic light there.
All right,
But we're not quite there yet.
And Who is paying the cost for that crosswalk?
The FDOT, well, yeah. this is-
Totally?
Totally. We would not be paying anything.
Okay.
Yeah, we were pretty clear when we asked.
Okay.
Whether this would fall back on us or even the business owner, but they are, through their budget process, they are going to cover the entire cost. And here's the image of where it would end up. This will likely not occur until probably toward the end of 2023. So we're a little bit likely, about a year away, maybe likely longer than that, so that they can have the funding to complete this little mini project.
On the west side, that is the beach access.
Well, this
They
is
have drawn.
134th here. This is the west side of Gulf Boulevard and
Right.
east side.
But where
I
you
don't think that the beach
cross-
access is through 134th.
Okay.
Can you zoom out on that, Robin? Or is that it?
Picture.
Is that it?
Yeah, Mr. City Manager, I mean, I'm all for safety, and that's great, and I'm all for helping a business out. The residents are gonna go bananas over this. There's one I can look at them from my store window every day, between 136 and 135, there's one right there. Then there's one right beyond Lisa's Cafe there in front of the Barefoot
Yes.
Beach, and then that would be a third. So, I get it, okay, safety is most important, I'm all about that. Now, here's the issue. What we're gonna get is we're gonna get people on the north end of town where there's actually crosswalks that are flipping needed, and where we have people just wandering in the middle of the road, walking across from the reef into the middle of the road, and, getting blown up by cars, okay? So I don't know, how are we going to prioritize this from our vantage point to go to our residents and say, well, we definitely need one here, but we don't need one where it's more active?
Well, they beat me to exactly what you said, because that's my observation, is there needs to be one between the crosswalk at 144th, 145th, that goes to the county park. That's about the busiest crosswalk we have. There needs to be one between there and 150th. And so Megan and I mentioned that to FDOT, and they said that, I mean, we will provide them that data, and they will go forward and do that. Why they didn't do it now, I think, is because nobody had asked. And whether they were I think I'm completely under the understanding that this is happening because the businesses inquired about it. And we had not, and in my first few months here, I wouldn't have started here. Was again between 144th, 145th, and 150th. Because you do see people going across from the reef, from even Coastal Taco to Schooners, and you got the crosswalk within a couple 100 feet. So I completely agree with you.
If the crosswalk is from here to that wall,
Yeah, some people.
people aren't going to walk down to the crosswalk. Just my 2 cents worth.
So can we take away the one at 135th?
I
don't know who goes.
Well,
They are very against removing.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Well,
because
yeah, because
putting
if we
two for
can
safety.
get a traffic light at Johns Pass Village, I would love to get rid of the crosswalks on each side of where that traffic light would go. And-
Well, we're trying to be creative with the parking garage a little bit, and
Yeah.
as I mentioned, possibly have a pedestrian overpass over Gulf Boulevard, but just an idea.
That'd be great. Well, still though, the traffic's so heavy
No, right,
down
right.
there
We'd still have
during
the need for the
season.
light.
Yeah. But how many people, unless they're actually in the parking garage, are going to walk up to the crosswalk and go across?
Right, it would primarily be for the parking garage.
Yeah. So, okay. Any public comment? Yes, ma'am. Welcome home.
Thank you. Helen Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue in the beautiful city of Madeira Beach. There's a crosswalk at 133rd. we're going to have one block between those two. I don't care. For me, it's great because then I can turn left down my street with all sorts of stops, right? But absolutely in front of even Lucky Lizard and Reef and everything, that is by far a better place to put a new crosswalk where there's 5, 6 blocks between the two. And that, I looked at that, and it's Tie the Knot. This same company parks their very large white trucks right under 134th, because of course that's one of my little beach walkways, and blocks the whole area where you can't even pull in and out of the city-run parking spots. So they're already using the city for a lot of their own stuff there. I just think that's a bit excessive. And I think any company can ask FDOT to do something and pay them, and they're going to come up with something. But I don't want to see a crosswalk every single block.
I tend to agree with you. I'm not a big fan, but, then they start yelling safety and all that kind of stuff. But when I know for a fact, are we going to end up with a crosswalk every 50 feet because people are too lazy to walk down to the crosswalk?
Well, they're probably dressed up. They're going to see a wedding. I mean, I understand it, but I don't understand why we would do it for one business and not for just the general people that we see running across every day.
Yeah, and I think this came to us after they went to FDOT, you
Yeah.
know, and we got a letter after the fact. So,
That's it. Thank you.
thank you.
She's absolutely correct. Yeah. She's absolutely correct. Jerry Cantrell, 13322 First Street East. You guys are correct. Safety is important. You're absolutely correct. There's already, I mean, we live there. They're already there. You know, it's the, there's something you said that which also ties into parking, and I don't know if it's appropriate to say it, but I just want to throw it out there. The fact that Tie the Knot or West Events, they're already using the public spaces across the street, plus on the other side, which is towards where we live on the intercoastal, they're also avoiding any parking issues. I mean, where they're not using parking where I would personally perceive it to be appropriate, because they will take up the entire road, and then they go down the streets and park in front of people's houses, and they parked on people's grass. And they're getting paid for that by a valet service. They actually charge a valet for that. So this is one of those things to where that it's like, okay, you're right, they can call FDOT. I mean, you guys can call FDOT and ask them, hey, put this in the place that it really needs to be. But that's one of those instances where the institution, the company itself, is just totally taking advantage of the government on that. And that's just my opinion. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Mayor, just to quickly add, we are looking at what was just brought up as well because of the fact that they are using a lot of parking that is part of the free parking that I mentioned earlier in the city. And so we are reviewing that and seeing how extensive, but I think in the 4 months I've been here, we've received 3 calls from residents expressing concerns about the number of cars parked in that neighborhood. This would be 4 and 5, it sounds like.
Yeah, because, you know, we ran into that at Caddy's, and we put signs up, parking by residential permit only, and if that's an area that it looks like we need to do that.
Yeah, we
then
will.
that's,
Because I've not called down.
No, they were.
I had to call the police department because I couldn't drive down my own road.
Okay. Well, that's what we're going to pull. These were just calls here to City Hall saying, hey, there's a problem with X number of cars when they have a very large event and they're valeting them, and so we'll include that as well.
okay. Next is discuss park landscaping improvements and enhancements. And this is something that I've actually brought up a few years about getting our parks in better shape. And I think this is more going to be a budget issue that we need to discuss when we come up, because apparently it has not been getting in budgets in the past couple of years. Also, and I wish Mr. Beggins was here. Mr. Hatch, maybe you can shed a little light on this. I know we've got Friends of Parks and rec and whatnot, and I think we were looking at trying to get some buy-in from companies on adopting parks. Has anything materialized on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was a direct charge of the Friends group. I think it was more for special events, but we could obviously ask them as to, would you be interested in an Adopt a Park type program?
Yeah, an Adopt a Park program has not
Was not.
been implemented. It's been discussed, but there's been no implementation of it yet. And there's, Megan would probably know a lot more park-wise, not to throw her under the bus on this, but just, she's definitely the expert on that as far as all the pocket parks and everything goes. So there's a lot more to it than I think we see on the surface. But as far as a fundraising aspect of it, that is the intent. I know Mr. Beggins lives nearby one of, I'm not sure if it was pictured or not, but he does live near one of those. So they do have a vision that they might want to see. So we got to make sure it all makes sense, and then, that can definitely move forward once we have that idea.
And if we do move forward with that, we need to have certain visions and standards, and we have to realize that it has to be maintained. So it needs to be something that we are not setting ourselves up for failure with the small staff that we currently have.
Yeah.
And we also have to keep a lot of the green space for our CRS as planning and zoning. It's very, very important to them as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've heard me say year in, year out, we need to get the parks back in shape. And really focus on the entrance to the city and Patriot Park and this park that needs some TLC desperately, and even the village where, there's no mulch or whatever, and the bushes are torn up, people are driving over bushes and all, so.
We are working from one park to the next. We are really, really focused on Archibald at the moment. I have done a lot of maintenance over there. I'm not sure if anybody has noticed. We are removing ground cover that does nothing but collect trash, and we are shelling it to make it just easier to maintain, and it's simple and beautiful, leaving the palm trees.
Yeah, don't put those big white rocks like you did on Island Drive.
That was out of my control.
That's a disaster. Just FYI.
We like Shell. Shell is our favorite.
Okay.
By the way, kudos on the shower at Kitty Stewart Park.
Thank you very much.
Fabulous. idea.
Simple
Yeah.
things that we're working on as
Fabulous idea.
maintenance-wise for us that cost us several hours throughout the week on things that we could be focused on. One of those were the showers at Archibald and the shower at Kitty Stewart. Both very poor designs that have now saved us a lot of time.
Good. So I would say this is something really we need to push towards budget time.
And I think Mr. Tagliarini brought this one up, so we probably need him to hear.
Well, yeah.
From what he
He was looking, specifically for the little mini pocket parks along Boca Ciega, where one was improved and the other three, well, I guess there's five, really.
There's actually a total of seven
seven
in Boca
along,
Ciega.
right.
Yes,
And
and
so
only
only
one
one
has
was
been
improved.
improved.
Yeah, well, and I understand, though, that there are some residents around there that want to keep it pretty
They-
much grass.
They do not want anything next to them, and we also have three actually of those pocket parks are used as driveways to the entrance to their homes. So we also have to remember that as well.
Okay.
But even here, I think our contractor started mowing, right? Mowing and weeding here at ROC recently, and it does look better.
Yes.
Yeah. Not to say that our staff wasn't doing, that they were sort of doing it, but it was as they had time to do it, and.
Yeah, I won't defend that. You can say whatever you want. It did not look great. And it's tough. It's tough. There's probably, one, 100 square feet of flat surface out there mowing wise, and everything else is on a hill. They have started, they're in their third or fourth week now, and then, we actually did a walkthrough today, They're going to come out next week. Our biggest issue out here is maintaining functioning irrigation. We are using reclaimed water service, and we are at the end of the line, which causes a lot of snails and a lot of debris to accumulate within the system. It's a nightmare, but I could go pull any of the thousands of sprinkler heads out there, and you would see the debris and the snails and everything else. We've got filter systems on them, all that. So anyway, we walked through with them today. They are going to spend some time diagnosing these irrigation issues first and foremost out there, and we're going to spend, I'm probably going to have to come to you guys for the money to make some repairs out there, because it's a constant. I could go out there and fix 10, and tomorrow there'd be 20 more. So it's how the system is. So so that's our priority right there, and then that you'll see more green grass, that kind of stuff. And then we are building a fertilization plan that makes more sense out there, that also doesn't affect the water, as we are that close to the water. So there's just a lot of stuff that we need to make sure makes sense. But and the fountain, I know it's looking rough too. That's almost completed as far as the pumps go, and then we're going to go through and we're going to get rid of all those tiny little rocks that kids like to throw at everything out there. So it's, as Megan said, it's simplification of everything. A lot of the stuff looks really nice, but it's not the easiest to keep up, and we are limited in staff time and everything. So we want to make it make sense and make it worthwhile. So Yep.
Thank you.
I'd actually made a note to bring up about you call it the fountain, the reflection pond?
Yeah,
Same.
reflection
It's in
pond.
total disrepair.
How far along is it going to be for Founder's Day?
That's next week, yeah.
We'll get out there and clean it up. It's not going to be functioning quite yet, because they're still working on the pumps.
Okay.
And then the paver guy, he's back out some time, and then, it seems anytime we get that thing running, kids find their way to it, and,
That's just what kids
breaks
do.
something else. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anyone else? Any public comment on this? Next is discussion of Gulf Beach Library Board and review of fiscal year '23 budget.
In Mayor and Commission, I provided, you have in the packet the budget that the Library Board of Trustees approved in March. And it shows what the total budget of $538,631, and what the five member cities are contributing. Our contribution is going to be a little bit less than the prior year, $68,034, about 11% less than the current year, excuse me. We comprise about 25% of the budget allocation. The library's budget, which is included here, is, again, the five cities contribute $271,000, and then the remaining budget comes from the Pinellas Public Library Co-op operations, and then some reserves. The additional $267,000 and change. So just wanted they sent this to us earlier this month, and just wanted to provide it to you just for your knowledge. And then later, there is a 5-year agreement, an interlibrary cooperative agreement. I think I did include the copy in here. Yes. And so it runs through, through 2026 is when the agreement runs through, and we are required to, we include this in our budget, and I think we're required, the commission then, we will bring it back later in the year, the agreement to approve. And also the part of the reason this was on the agenda was to discuss the makeup of the board, but the commission made your appointments, an appointment of a member to the board representing the city. Each city gets one voting member. Correct. And then an alternate, and those were adopted last year or earlier this year?
I don't think it's been a year yet.
Right, within the last year.
Yeah, and those are 3-year terms.
3-year terms, so that's currently where the membership is.
Where that stands and will stay, because Ms. Price was just put on there. And while Ms. Price is here, I'd like her to give us an update on the library, on what has been going on and what changes have been made. I will say that in the 2 years that we have gone through this process, there have been tremendous improvements in the library.
I think so. Mayor, vice mayor, commissioners, friends. There has been a lot happened during the first 8 months or so that I've been on the board of trustees. Most significantly was the new interlocal agreement that was adopted by all the participating towns. And for the benefit of those who were not here in 2020, when this became an issue, I'm going to give a little synopsis, if I may. During our city budgeting process in 2020, it was discovered that our library had amassed about $1 million worth of certificates of deposits, and all the while asking every year for an increased amount of money for operation of for the library. Unbeknownst to us on the commission, until we got the budget, we learned that the library intended to build a conference room and an addition to the library. And this was, as I'm going to remind you, at the very outset of the COVID outbreak, when nobody really knew what was going to happen, and the governor had closed our beaches and therefore closed that revenue stream for the city. So the Madeira Beach Board of Commission questioned the library about the addition they wanted to build, did not get satisfactory answers, and decided that they would pay for everything the library asked for except Madeira Beach's portion of the addition. The library argued that all the other towns approved their request, so Madeira Beach should too. But when the Madeira Beach Commission insisted that our town would not budget for an addition, the library's attorney sent our city a letter threatening to kick us out of the library consortium if we did not pay their proposed budget in full. Not surprisingly, each of the other towns learned of the $1 million stash and the threat from the library, and the mayors got together and created our new interlocal agreement that we're operating under now. And there were several key directives to that agreement. First of all, reduce the number of trustees from 12 people to 5, maintain the current footprint of the library, start spending the $1 million in the bank to upgrade the library's technology and modernize the interior of the library, and cap the reserves at 10% of the budget. So that's been my goal, since that's what the directives were. All 5 towns signed the agreement. It finally all got underway in October, at least for Madeira Beach, October of 2021, when I became a trustee. So fast forward to today, and during this last 8 months or so, we're now seeing some wonderful library improvements and much needed maintenance. That library, I can tell you, was being ignored. The air conditioners weren't working, bathrooms were backing up and smelling. I didn't really notice it that much, and I was there about once a week, but the people who worked there were telling me some horror stories. So anyway, the capital expenditures on the year-to-date are found on, it's on this page, but it's a little further down, so I don't really want to go over it too much, but basically, we've already, put up a new sign, upgraded the air conditioner, we have 3 phases of it, technology. 1 and 2 are done, which is new computers, new a computer area for people, a new way to pay for the computers and copiers and things of that nature, which make it a lot better for us. New front door, automatic front door, interior lights, exterior lights, and a lot of goodies. So that's all been done. The library still has approximately $700,000 in cash, but once the new roof, the bathrooms, and again, this is planned capital expenditures, it's the first page of the budget. Once all that's done, the bathrooms, the new roof, and the kitchen, we're getting a new kitchen, that number will be reduced down to about $340,000. According to the interlocal agreement, the reserves should be around $55,000 based on this year's budget. But we didn't give a really large discount. I know it turned out to be about 11%, because we have a wild card there with our parking lot. We have to get the parking lot up to ADA compliance, and we don't know how much that's going to cost just yet. So I think we've done a lot as far as spending down that money and plans to spend down that money. And kind of the good news is our circulation is up, the highest it's been in 2 years. So I think it's having a positive effect. So more of that, if you want to ask me specifically about budget, I'll answer you as well as I can. But for new business, the library board officer elections were last night. We have a new chairperson, Bill Krajewski of Reddington Shores. I'm the vice chairman there now. New secretary is Richard Cariello from Reddington Beach, and the treasurer will remain Deb Toth of Treasure Island. So I'm very pleased and honored to have a leadership role at the library. Unfortunately, we still have a library trustee member that, and an alternate for that matter, from one town who resists the direction from the interlocal agreement, and that's Treasure Island. I spoke with Mayor Payne this morning about that problem and the need for some unity in the library board, and he appears that he can be of no help. So I guess we'll remain somewhat divided initially. Good news is the board members from the majority of the towns are in agreement with the directives set forth in the interlocal agreement, and I think the library will only continue to improve and modernize. At least that's my goal, and I know the goal of most of the people sitting there. So I updated the bylaws to adhere to the new local agreement, and those were critiqued and revised and adopted in January of 2022. Finally, the library is hiring a law firm to update its articles of incorporation, since the one on file with the state is from 1969. So there's a lot of things that have fallen through the cracks for many, many years with that library, and I think we're getting up to snuff. That's about it. That's the update. So if you have any questions on the budget, I'll do my best to answer them. I will say the budget is pretty much based on last year and the year before and the year before. It doesn't have a whole lot of changes. There are some areas I think could be reduced, but I think, based on 2 years ago, this town was paying like $84,000.
93, actually.
93,000.
When I
Yeah,
first.
93 is what they asked for. We ended up paying 84. Last year, I can't remember what we paid, but we're down to 68,000. So the library is trying to give back to the towns as much as they could. 11% is as much as we could squeeze out of the trustees. Believe me, there were trustees that didn't want to give a discount to the towns at all. But certainly by next year and the year after that, that $1 million will be down to where it should be as a reserve.
Happy, I got one question, and
Yeah.
I don't know why I've never asked this before, because I'm assuming we still do it. Who does the landscaping? Do we still handle, Megan?
We mow, I
Megan.
think. Yeah.
So do we
mow.
get compensated for that, or no? Is it just
No,
it's our
in
problem?
fact, we rent them that entire piece of property for $1 a year.
Well, I'm not worried about that part, but
Yeah.
as far as since the library's flush with cash, maybe toss us back a couple of bucks as far as mowing the
I'll
grass.
go back with any suggestions. you
Yeah,
have.
and I mean, we've been doing it, I mean, maybe we get a little back pay, because we've been doing it for like 30 years for free, so. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I was
yeah, I mean, if
told-
there's a.
I was
Jay,
told when they
there's-
put those rocks in there that they had their own guy, because we couldn't just whiz through there, right? As soon as they put those rocks up, I was told that we were letting them do their own grass, but
Yeah, Jay can add as to why we do that.
There's an addendum to the contract that came about during the construction of our of this.
Fire department.
I guess we needed a portion of the property for the fire department and negotiated the use of our own property, so.
Yeah, we needed a piece of our own property back to finish the project, so that we cut the grass for free then.
Yes.
That's
It's
a really good deal, whoever cut that, that was
It's
awesome.
addendum 3 or 4 to the library contract.
To the to this agreement?
to the
Yes.
lease, I think.
Oh, to
The ground lease.
the ground, because
Yeah.
that's a separate
The ground
agreement.
lease, yeah.
But I'm guessing we could review that, if that was your pleasure.
We do mow the grass, we do all of that. We do not take care of the trees. So the pine that was dead, that went down, the library did pay for that.
Yep. Well, I have to say, the library is light years ahead of where it was 2 years ago, and they came forward kicking and screaming. And I will say that the library director has been very difficult to deal with. As you know, they told us literally it was their way or the highway as far as Madeira Beach staying in the library. Myself and Mr. Daniels went over to have a discussion with the library director. And while there, I requested a meeting between the library director, myself, and one of the other mayors that wanted to meet with him, and he refused to meet with us. So he's been very adversarial to all the cities, and I'm very disappointed at his performance in dealing with the cities when we're bankrolling the library. I just wanted to get that out there. That it's very disappointing that us as a city has been handled the way we have.
No, I agree. And in fact, in that budget, one of the areas, I was thinking of recommendations for reductions that I would give you where I thought we could do it was, and I know you'll agree with me, this one, Mayor, is less money for paper books, more for electronic books. Because if you'll notice in the budget, went from $45,000 a year for paper books to 40, but if you look at the note, it really didn't go down because we put money, there's money in electronic books. And prior to that, the 45 was both electronic and paper. And I thought, and of course, you know how big of a fan I am of across-the-board raises. This budget reflects a 4% raise for everyone at the library, including the library director. And I agree with you. I think Mr. Gaudreau has been part of the problem with his resistance to the interlocal agreement. Frankly, I don't think he has the skills to keep that library modernized. So that would be another place where you may want to recommend that I go back with a cut, just my thing. And I thought less money for DVDs. And I know you've brought that up, so.
And CDs. I mean, as I brought up in that other budget, they had, I think, 45,000 in there for books, 8,000 in there for DVDs, and 8,000 in there for CDs. And even I had a discussion before the election with Mr. Taglieri, and he himself said that it was very hard to defend a library in this day and age because for books, he goes to his Kindle or his iPad, and that's where he gets his books.
I'm on the
So-
list right now for a novel. Granted, he's a popular novelist right now, C.J. Box. I'm 120 on the list. I'm going to be waiting 8 months to read that book. So that's the kind of stuff, I mean, it is a real popular book that came out, but still. I mean, most times I can go in there and find a book I like or find the next book in a series, and I'm maybe 3 or 4 people behind, and it'll pop up, in a month or so. But it really would be nice to quicken that electronic book thing, because almost everybody's reading on their readers now. But anyway,
But, yeah, y'all got a paint job over there too, I think.
yeah, painted inside and out, and now we're getting a new roof, $185,000. Yeah, that roof. That is so distinctive. But it's leaking, so
Well, that'll help on the insurance on the building. Get them wind mitigation report.
yeah.
Okay. Is that it?
All right, I'll sit
Thank you,
down, but
ma'am.
if you have any questions on any of the expenses, the last 2 pages, I can try to answer them as well as I can.
I think we've got a great commission or library board now that's really doing the oversight that needed to be done.
I think so. I think it's just going to move forward
Yeah.
from this
yeah.
point on, so I'm excited about it. We
Yeah,
need to
it-
keep our
you know,
cool
and
little library.
I understand, and I'll be brief. I haven't been brief all night, but I understand that one of the other cities was saying, well, they needed a board member. They wanted to keep it at 10 members because the constituents needed a representative. Elected officials are representative of the constituents. So, and we went back and changed the interlocal agreement for that particular city so that they could have everything they wanted in it. And so anyhow, that's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
We're on a good track.
Yes.
Mayor, the comment was made about what the city paid the year before. I looked it up into the budget that's online. It took me a little longer because it's not searchable. Fiscal year 2019 was 93.3. Fiscal year 2020 was 93.4.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? Any public comment? With that, this meeting is adjourned at 9:17.